Manager kicks out elderly man over his clothes, but he returns and buys the entire dealership. Robert Wilson straightened his faded cotton shirt and took a deep breath before stepping through the glass door of the most luxurious dealership in Tampa. The air conditioning hit him like an icy wave, a stark contrast to the August heat baking the Florida coast. "Excuse me," Robert said to the first salesman he spotted, a young man with neatly combed hair organizing papers on a glass table. The salesman looked up and quickly assessed Robert. Worn-out sandals, wrinkled green pants, a plain shirt with no visible brand. His eyes filled with barely disguised contempt. "Sir, this isn't the place for begging. The mall is across the street," the young man said, turning his attention back to the papers. Robert felt his face grow hot, but he kept the composure he'd learned over his 65 years of life. "I'm not here to beg. I want to see the cars." "See the cars?" The salesman let out a short laugh. "Sir, our vehicles cost more than a house. Maybe you'd be interested in the shop on the other side of town. They sell used cars dirt cheap." Other salesmen began tuning in to the conversation. Robert noticed the whispers and judgmental stares. It was as if an alien had invaded their world of polished glass and metal. "I have the money to buy any car here," Robert insisted, trying to maintain his dignity. "Of course you do," the salesman replied sarcastically. "And I own the dealership." From the back of the showroom, a man in an impeccable suit approached, with firm steps. It was Michael Cooper, the general manager of the dealership, known for his ruthless ambition and for judging customers by their appearances. "What's the problem here?" Michael asked, eyeing Robert from head to toe. "This gentleman insists he has the money to buy our cars," the salesman explained. Michael stepped in front of Robert, crossing his arms. His stance was intimidating, designed to make the older man feel small and out of place. "Sir, I'll be blunt. This is a serious dealership for serious customers. We don't sell cars to people who show up in sandals and wrinkled clothes. You're disrespecting our environment and our other clients." Robert glanced around. There were only 3 other people in the showroom, a well-dressed young couple eyeing a silver sedan and an elegant woman inspecting a pickup truck. "I'm not disrespecting anyone, I just want to see the cars. And I'm telling you, sir, you don't fit our client profile." Michael raised his voice just enough for everyone to hear. "Our cars are for successful people, business owners, professionals. Not for—" He paused, looking Robert's clothes over again. "People who clearly can't afford them." The young couple stopped examining the car and turned to watch the argument. The elegant woman also discreetly tuned in. "How can you judge my financial situation by my clothes?" Robert asked, his voice carrying a dignity that didn't match his simple appearance. "Sir, I've been in this business for 15 years. I know how to spot who has money and who doesn't. And you, sir, definitely don't." Michael signaled to 2 security guards near the entrance. "Boys, escort this gentleman out and make it clear he's not welcome here." The guards approached with forced politeness but firm intent. "Sir, please, we're going to have to ask you to leave," one said. Robert felt the humiliation burn in his chest. Everyone in the showroom was staring at him as if he were a criminal or a troublemaker, but something in his eyes shone with a determination that Michael couldn't interpret. "All right, I'll leave," said Robert calmly, "but you'll remember this conversation." "I'm sure we won't," replied Michael with contempt. "Now, please, leave." Robert walked slowly toward the exit, passing by the gleaming cars he had dreamed of seeing up close. Each step echoed on the polished marble floor, a sound that seemed to mark his defeat. At the door, he turned one last time. "My name is Robert Wilson. Remember it." Michael rolled his eyes. "Rest assured, we'll forget all about you, Mr. Wilson." The glass door closed behind Robert, who stood on the sidewalk for a few minutes watching the activity inside the dealership. The August sun scorched the asphalt, creating heat waves that distorted the view. He adjusted his shirt again and began walking down Ocean Drive, one of the main streets in Tampa. Robert had lied about one thing. He didn't just have enough money to buy any car in that dealership. He had enough to buy the entire dealership, including the land it was built on and 3 surrounding blocks. Robert Wilson was one of the wealthiest men on the Florida coast, owner of a fishing fleet that had operated discreetly for over 40 years. His business had started with a single boat inherited from his father and grown into one of the largest fishing operations in the region. But Robert always lived simply, wearing basic clothes and avoiding extravagance. His philosophy was clear. Money should work, not be flaunted. While other businessmen bought mansions and luxury cars, Robert invested in more boats, modern equipment, and improvements for his employees. His wealth was known only to his accountants, lawyers, and the fishermen who had worked with him for decades. That morning, Robert had finally decided to buy a better car. His old 2008 Camry was showing signs of wear, and he thought it might be time for a small luxury. He chose the most expensive dealership in town because he wanted something truly good, something that would last years without trouble. But the humiliation he suffered completely changed his plans. Back in his modest apartment in downtown Tampa, Robert called his lawyer, William Patterson, a trusted man who had handled his business for over 20 years. "William, I need you to gather all the information on Luxury Auto Tampa. I want to know who owns it, its financial situation, any legal issues, everything. Any specific problem, Robert? Let's just say I had an unpleasant experience there today. I want to understand how this business operates. I'll do a full report and email it to you by tomorrow." Robert hung up and sat in his favorite chair, a simple brown leather piece he'd bought 15 years ago at a used furniture store. His apartment reflected his personality. Functional, clean, no excess. The walls had few decorations, just some photos of fishing boats and an image of St. Christopher. In the kitchen, he made a ham and cheese sandwich, the same lunch he ate almost every day at home. As he ate, Robert reflected on what had happened at the dealership. It wasn't the first time he'd been judged by his appearance, but he'd never been treated with such public disdain. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The next afternoon, William's email arrived with detailed information about Luxury Auto Tampa. Robert read every line with growing interest. The dealership belonged to a business group called Cooper & Associates, led by Charles Cooper, father of Michael. The business was facing serious financial difficulties. They had expanded too quickly in recent years, opening branches in other cities along the Florida coast. But sales hadn't kept up with investments. The report showed they owed about 8 million reais to suppliers and banks. The situation was becoming unsustainable, and there were market rumors that they might be forced to sell the business in the coming months. Robert smiled for the first time since the incident. An idea was forming in his mind. He picked up the phone again and called Dr. William. "William, I want you to set up a shell company, something discreet, based in New York. The name can be Lighthouse Capital LLC. For what purpose? I'm going to make some strategic acquisitions, and I want complete secrecy about my involvement. Understood? Do I need more details?" "Not for now, just set up the legal structure. I'll explain the rest later." In the following days, Robert completely changed his routine. Instead of going straight to the port to supervise his boats, he began spending his mornings studying the Tampa automotive market. He visited other dealerships, always keeping his simple appearance, observing how he was treated at each place. To his surprise, the experience at Luxury Auto Tampa wasn't unique. At 2 other luxury dealerships, he was treated with similar contempt. Only at one store was he given basic courtesy, but even then, he noticed the skepticism in the salespeople's eyes. This personal investigation only strengthened his resolve. Robert realized the problem wasn't just with Michael or Luxury Auto Tampa. It was a systemic issue of discrimination based on appearance. A week after the incident, Dr. William confirmed that Lighthouse Capital was legally established and operational. "Now I need you to contact the creditors of Luxury Auto Tampa," Robert instructed. "Offer to buy their debts for 70 cents on C, the dollar." "That's a risky strategy, Robert. If you buy the debt, I become their main creditor, and I can force a negotiation to settle the debt or seize their assets." "Exactly, but this could look like predatory behavior." "There's nothing illegal about it, it's just business." Dr. William spent the next 2 weeks discreetly negotiating with Luxury Auto Tampa's creditors. The strategy worked better than expected. The suppliers and even one of the banks agreed to sell the debts at a discount, preferring immediate payment. over-risking a total default. Within 15 days, Lighthouse Capital had acquired about 6 million reais of the dealership's debt for just 4 million. Robert was now Charles Cooper's biggest creditor, though Charles didn't know it yet. During this time, Robert continued visiting the dealership as an ordinary customer, always observing Michael in action. The manager maintained the same pattern of behavior, extremely attentive to well-dressed customers and dismissive of anyone who didn't fit his ideal profile. Robert witnessed Michael humiliate a retiree who wanted to see a pickup truck, a college student interested in a used car, and even an elegant lady who had the misfortune of arriving by bus instead of her own car. The pattern was always the same: immediate judgment based on appearance followed by disrespectful treatment. Every episode Robert witnessed fueled his determination to teach a lesson not just to Michael, but to the entire local automotive industry. The moment to act came when Dr. William called with crucial information. "Robert, the situation at Luxury Auto Tampa has gotten worse. They delayed employee payments this month. Charles Cooper is desperate. It's time to make our move." "Perfect. Schedule a meeting with him for tomorrow. Tell him Lighthouse Capital LLC is interested in negotiating the debts." "And will you appear as the representative of Lighthouse?" "Not yet. You'll go alone. I want to understand their situation first." Dr. William Patterson met with Charles Cooper on a rainy afternoon in March. The meeting took place at the dealership's office, an elegant room on the second floor of the building. Charles was a man in his early 50s, well-dressed but with visible signs of stress on his face. "Dr. Patterson, you said you represent an investment firm interested in our debts." "Exactly. My client has acquired a significant portion of your financial obligations and would like to propose a settlement." Charles felt his blood run cold. "What kind of settlement?" "My client is willing to accept a lump sum payment of 80% of the debt, with a 60-day deadline for payment. That would be, let me calculate." Charles grabbed a calculator. "About $4,800,000. "Correct. Doctor, with all due respect, we don't have that amount available. If we did, we wouldn't be in debt." "I understand. In that case, there's an alternative." "What?" "My client would be interested in accepting the transfer of the dealership as full payment of the debts." The silence that followed was deafening. Charles looked out the window, watching the rain fall on the lot where the luxury cars, once his pride, were displayed. "Are you suggesting I hand over my business?" "I'm suggesting your client consider this possibility. Of course, normal operations would continue, employees would be retained, and the Cooper family could even remain in management, depending on the negotiated terms. I need to talk to my son and think about this." "Of course. My client will give you 15 days to decide." That night, Charles called an emergency family meeting. Present were his wife, Elizabeth, Michael, and their youngest daughter, Amanda, who studied business and occasionally helped at the dealership. "The situation is serious," Charles began. "We have two options. Come up with nearly $5 million in 2 months or hand over the business." "Dad, this is absurd," Michael protested. "Who is this mysterious investor? Where did they come from?" "We don't know. Their lawyer wouldn't reveal their identity. It must be someone trying to take advantage of our situation," Elizabeth said. "We can't accept this." "The problem is, we don't have a choice," Charles sighed. "I've already tried loans at every bank. No one wants to finance a company that's already in so much debt." Amanda, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "Dad, what if we tried selling some of the cars in stock? Even at a discount, it could help." "I've thought of that. But the cars are already collateral for the banks. I can't sell them without paying off the debts first." Michael slammed his fist on the table. "There has to be a way. I won't let some opportunist take our business." "Michael, do you have any practical suggestions?" Charles asked. "We could look for other investors, someone who'd take a partnership instead of taking everything." "Son, I've tried that for the last 6 months. No one wants to invest in a debt-ridden business in today's automotive market." The discussion continued late into the night, but they reached no viable conclusion. The reality was that Luxury Auto Tampa was in an unsustainable situation. While the Cooper family debated their future, Robert went about his normal routine. In the morning, he went to the docks to oversee the unloading of the fishing boats. His fleet had had an excellent season, with record catches of sardines and anchovies. His employees noticed Robert was more upbeat than usual. Frank Thompson, your operations manager for 20 years, mentioned this during lunch at a simple diner near the port. Mr. Robert, you look like you're planning something. Robert smiled. Let's just say I'm considering a change of scenery, Frank. You're not thinking about retirement, are you? Not exactly. Maybe it's time to diversify the business. How so? You remember how I've always talked about the importance of treating people well, no matter how they dress or where they come from? Of course. You've always treated everyone the same, from the simplest fisherman to the wealthiest buyers. That's right. Recently, I've learned not everyone thinks that way. Robert told Frank what had happened at the dealership, leaving out only his plans to buy it. That's outrageous, Frank reacted, judging someone by their clothes, as if clothing had anything to do with character or financial ability. Exactly, and I'm thinking of doing something about it. Like what, for example? I'm still deciding, but when I do, you'll be the first to know. That afternoon, Robert got a call from Dr. William. Robert, Charles Cooper wants to schedule a meeting for Thursday. Seems like he's ready to negotiate. Perfect. Set it for 2 in the afternoon. Will you be there in person? Not yet. I want to see what he has to offer first. Understood. Thursday arrived with a clear, sunny sky. Dr. William arrived at the dealership promptly at 2, finding not only Charles but also Michael in the meeting room. Dr. William, thank you for coming, said Charles. This is my son Michael, the store's general manager. Pleasure, replied Dr. William, shaking Michael's hand without letting on that he already knew him from Robert's accounts. Doctor, we've discussed your client's proposal at length, Charles began, and we'd like to make a counteroffer. I'm listening. We'd be willing to accept your client as a majority partner with 60% of the company in exchange for settling the debts. Dr. William pretended to consider the offer. That's an interesting idea, but my client isn't interested in a partnership. He prefers full control or no involvement at all. Michael leaned forward, clearly irritated. Doctor, with all due respect, but who is your client? Why all this secrecy? It feels like something out of a movie. My client prefers to remain anonymous until a deal is finalized. It's standard practice in business acquisitions. But can you at least tell us if they're from the automotive industry? Charles pressed. I can say they have experience in business management and solid financial resources. Someone interested in keeping operations running and jobs intact. Michael exchanged a worried glance with his father. And if we agree to a full transfer of the company, what would our role be? That would depend on the final negotiation. My client isn't ruling out keeping the current management team, provided they demonstrate competence and alignment with his business vision. And what vision is that? Charles asked. Excellence in service, respect for clients regardless of socioeconomic background, and a focus on long-term business sustainability. Michael shifted in his chair. Something about those words bothered him, but he couldn't pinpoint what. Doctor, we'll need another week to decide, said Charles. Of course, but I should make it clear this is the best offer my client can make. He has other investments under consideration and can't wait indefinitely. After Dr. William left, father and son sat in silence for several minutes. Michael, what do you think? I don't like it, Dad. There's something off about this whole thing. This mysterious client, the rush to close the deal, it doesn't sit right with me. But do you have a better alternative? Michael sighed, knowing he didn't. Unfortunately, no. Then I think we have no choice. That evening, Robert dined at a simple Japanese restaurant he had frequented for years. The owner, Mr. Yamamoto, always greeted him warmly and made sure to personally prepare his favorite, a dish. Mr. Robert, you seem deep in thought today, observed Mr. Yamamoto as he served the sashimi. I'm making an important decision, Mr. Yamamoto. Can I offer any advice? Robert reflected for a moment. When someone treats you poorly for no reason, what's the best way to respond? Mr. Yamamoto stopped preparing the dish and looked directly at Robert. In Japanese culture, we believe the best revenge is silent success. Show through actions, not words. Interesting. And if the person needs to learn a lesson so they don't keep mistreating others, then perhaps it's necessary to teach them, with kindness but firmness, show that actions have consequences. Robert nodded slowly. Thank you, Mr. Yamamoto. I think you've helped me decide. The following Friday, Dr. William received the call he had been waiting for. Doctor, we've decided to accept your client's proposal, said Charles with a heavy voice. We'll transfer the dealership as payment for the debts. Excellent. I'll inform my client and prepare the paperwork. Can we sign the contracts? On Monday. That works. There's just one additional condition my client would like to include. What is it? He'd like to personally introduce himself to the dealership staff on Monday before signing the contracts. So of course, that's no problem. Great, then 9 o'clock Monday morning. Charles hung up the phone and went to find Michael, who was talking with the sales team in the showroom. Son, we've closed the deal. Monday at 9, we'll meet. How are you as boss? Michael felt a knot in his stomach. Dad, I still think we're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's the only path we have left. The weekend passed slowly for everyone involved. Robert spent Saturday and Sunday organizing his thoughts and planning exactly how his presentation on Monday would go. He chose the same clothes he had worn the day he was humiliated, the faded cotton shirt, wrinkled green pants, and worn-out sandals. He wanted Michael to recognize him immediately. Monday dawned cloudy in Tampa. Robert arrived at the dealership at 8:45, parking his old Camry on the street in front of the glass building. He watched the movement inside for a few minutes. Salespeople arriving, the security guard opening the doors, the normal routine of a work morning. At exactly 9 o'clock, Dr. William arrived by taxi, followed a few minutes later by an executive car carrying an accountant and another lawyer who would be part of the transaction. Robert took a deep breath and walked toward the dealership. Entrance. The glass door slid open automatically, and he stepped into the air-conditioned space he had visited so many times in recent weeks. Charles and Michael were near the reception desk, talking nervously with Dr. William. Dad, where is this mysterious client? Michael checked his watch. He should be arriving any moment, replied Dr. William. In fact, he's already here. Dr. William gestured toward Robert, who was calmly approaching. Let me introduce Robert Wilson, owner of Lighthouse Capital LLC and the new owner of Luxury Auto Tampa. The silence that followed was absolute. Michael looked at Robert, then at Dr. William, then back at Robert, trying to process the information. Is this a joke? Were the first words he managed to say. It's no joke, Robert replied calmly. Mr. Michael, do you remember me? The color drained from Michael's face. He remembered perfectly the man he had humiliated a few weeks earlier. The man he had sent away because of his simple clothes. Michael stammered, unable to form a complete sentence. Charles looked from one to the other, completely confused. Michael, do you two know each other? Dad, this is the man. Michael stopped, realizing that admitting what he had done would be extremely embarrassing in front of everyone. The man you what? Charles insisted. Robert decided to clarify the situation. Mr. Charles, 3 weeks ago, I came to your dealership interested in buying a car. Your son threw me out of the store because he assumed I didn't have the money to buy anything here. He did what? Charles turned to Michael with a look of horror. Dad, I can explain. There's not much to explain, Robert continued. Your son explicitly said I didn't fit the profile to be a customer here. He called 2 security guards to escort me out. All the salespeople and employees in the store were now paying attention to the conversation. The same young salesman who had been disrespectful to Robert during his first visit watched the scene with growing apprehension. Mr. Robert, I had no idea, Charles began. If I had known my son had... Mr. Charles, don't worry. Your son just followed his instincts. The problem is, those instincts were wrong. Robert addressed the entire staff. Can everyone gather here in the center of the showroom? I have some important things to say. Gradually, all the employees moved closer. There were about 15 people, salespeople, receptionists, mechanics from the service department, cleaning staff, and the security guards. My name is Robert Wilson, and as of today, I am the new owner of this dealership. I know this is a surprise to everyone, and I understand you may be worried about your jobs. A murmur of anxiety spread among the employees. Let me be clear right now. No one will be fired due to the change in ownership. This business will continue to operate as usual. Relief was visible on everyone's faces. However, Robert continued, his voice growing more serious, some things will change drastically from now on. He looked directly at Michael and the young salesman who had mistreated him. From this moment forward, this company will treat every customer with the same respect and attention, regardless of how they're dressed, what car they drive, or how they look. Michael lowered his eyes, feeling the weight of embarrassment. Let me tell you what happened to me here 3 weeks ago. I came in interested in buying a car and was treated as if I were a beggar asking for spare change. I was judged by my clothes and thrown out of the store. The young salesman began to sweat. This isn't just wrong from a human perspective. It's a terrible business mistake. You never know who's walking through that door. Today I may look like a simple retiree. Tomorrow I could be the customer buying 10 cars for my company. Robert paused, letting his words sink in. But the most important thing isn't the money you lost by treating me poorly. It's the fact that you hurt a person's dignity. And if you did it to me, you probably do it to others every day. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. From today onward, Robert continued, this dealership will implement a new service policy. Every customer who walks in here will be treated with courtesy and respect, no exceptions. Anyone who can't follow this simple rule has no place in this company. The silence was absolute. Some employees looked at Michael with expressions mixing surprise and judgment. Mr. Wilson, said Charles, his voice heavy with shame, I apologize for my son's behavior. This does not represent the values I tried to teach him. Mr. Cooper, I appreciate your apology, but I want to make it clear that I'm not here for personal revenge. I'm here because I saw an opportunity to do things the right way. Robert turned specifically to Michael. Mr. Cooper, you will still have an important role in this company if you want it, but you'll need to learn to treat people as human, beings worthy of respect. Michael finally found the courage to speak. Mr. Wilson, I don't know what to say. I was completely wrong with you. You were. But what matters now is what you do from here on out. You're really going to keep me in the company after what I did? Mr. Cooper, everyone deserves a second chance. The question is what you'll do with it. Robert turned to the young salesman who had also disrespected him. What's your name, son? Tyler, sir, the young man replied, his voice trembling. Tyler, do you remember me? Yes, sir, and I want to apologize. I accept your apology, but I want you to understand something. Words are easy. What I want to see is a change in behavior. Yes, sir. You can count on it. Robert looked at all the employees again. Now let's get to the practical matters. Dr. Patterson will oversee the legal and administrative transition. I'll be here a few hours a day over the next few weeks, observing how things work and implementing the necessary changes. Mr. Wilson, said one of the saleswomen, a middle-aged woman named Jennifer, do you have experience in the automotive industry? Not specifically in the automotive industry, Jennifer, but I have 40 years of experience managing businesses and treating people with dignity. I believe that's what matters most. Charles approached Robert. Mr. Wilson, may I speak with you privately? Of course. The two went to the meeting room on the second floor. Charles closed the door and sat heavily in one of the chairs. Mr. Wilson, I built this business over 20 years. I know I've made mistakes, especially in raising my son, but I've always tried to be an honest businessman. Mr. Cooper, I have no doubts about your honesty. The financial troubles that led to this situation were the result of risky business decisions, not dishonesty. Thank you for recognizing that. I want you to know that if you decide to keep me in the company, I'll do my best to help with the transition. I was counting on that. I need someone who knows the business and suppliers inside out. And what about Michael? Robert paused before answering. Mr. Cooper, your son has technical knowledge about cars and sales. His problem isn't professional competence, it's attitude. If he can change how he treats people, he can have a promising future here. And if he can't, then he'll realize himself that he doesn't belong in this company. I see, Mr. Wilson. May I ask a personal question? Go ahead. Did you really buy our debt and our company just because of what happened to you here? Robert smiled for the first time since entering the dealership. Mr. Cooper, if I made million-dollar investments based solely on personal feelings, I wouldn't have gotten where I am in life. So you had other reasons? Yes. I see a real opportunity to turn this company into a model of how a dealership should operate. A place where people are treated with dignity and where service is based on quality, not prejudice. And you believe that's commercially viable? I'm certain of it. People who are treated well become loyal customers. Loyal customers spread positive word of mouth. Positive word of mouth brings in more customers. It's a simple formula, but few people apply it. Charles nodded thoughtfully. You're right, perhaps we've lost sight of what truly matters. It's not too late to refocus. The two returned to the ground floor, where employees were chatting in small groups, still processing the changes they had just witnessed. Everyone, Robert called out, we'll sign the transfer documents now. After that, I'd like to speak individually with some of you to better understand how the company operates. The signing of the contracts was quick and efficient. Dr. William had prepared all the paperwork in advance, and in less than an hour, Robert was officially the new owner of Luxury Auto Tampa. Once the lawyers and accountants left, Robert addressed the team again. Now that the legal matters are settled, I want to talk to you about the future. I have some ideas for improving this company, but first, I need to understand how you see the current problems. Jennifer, the middle-aged saleswoman, was the first to speak. Mr. Robert, can I be honest? Please, go ahead. Sometimes it was embarrassing to work here. We saw people being mistreated because of their appearance, and we couldn't do anything. And because it was management's orders. Other employees began to chime in. It's true, said Brandon, another salesman. I lost sales because I was told not to pay attention to certain types of customers. What types of customers? Robert asked. Working-class folks, young people, retirees, basically anyone who didn't seem to have a lot of money. Robert shook his head in disbelief. And you never questioned these instructions? Mr. Robert, Jennifer said, we needed our jobs. And Mr. Michael made it clear that anyone who didn't follow his directions would be fired. Robert looked at Michael, who was leaning against a wall with his head down. Mr. Michael, is this true? Michael raised his eyes, clearly ashamed. Yes, it's true. I thought I was protecting the dealership's image. Protecting it from what? From people who were just wasting time, who would never buy anything. And how exactly did you determine who would buy and who wouldn't? By their appearance, how they dressed, the car they arrived in. Mr. Michael, do you realize how absurd that is? Michael sighed. I do now. Robert turned back to the team. Everyone, from now on, the rules are simple. Every customer is welcome. Every customer deserves attention and respect, and every customer has the potential to make a purchase. I don't want to see anyone judged by their appearance again. But what if someone really is just here to waste time? Asked Tyler, the young salesman. Tyler, even if someone comes just to look at the cars with no intention of buying, what's the harm? Maybe they're researching for a future purchase. Maybe they'll recommend our dealership to someone who does want to buy. Or maybe they're just curious. What's wrong with that? Tyler considered the answer. That makes sense, Mr. Robert. Besides, Robert continued, you'll find that many people who don't seem to have money actually do, and many who appear wealthy don't. Appearances can be deceiving. Robert spent the rest of the morning speaking individually with each employee, learning about their roles, concerns, and suggestions for improving the company. From Jennifer, he discovered there was an unofficial list of undesirable customers who were discouraged from returning. From Brandon, he learned that many salespeople lost commissions because they were told to ignore certain customers who later bought cars from other dealerships. With the mechanics, he discovered that the after-sales sector also had issues, with different levels of service based on the price of the customer's car. Each conversation reinforced his conviction that there was much work to be done to transform the company's culture. By late morning, Robert called Michael for a private talk. Mr. Cooper, I want you to understand that I don't see you as an enemy. I see you as someone who was taught the wrong way to treat people. Mr. Wilson, I'd like to formally apologize for what I did to you. It was unforgivable. I accept your apology, But now I want to talk about the future. Do you want to keep working here? Yes, I do. I need this job and I want to learn how to do things the right way. Then here's my proposal. You'll remain as manager, but on probation. I'll observe how you treat customers from now on. If I see real changes in your behavior, you keep your position. If not, we'll have to find another role for you. Understood, and thank you for the opportunity. Don't thank me yet. Prove you deserve it. Robert decided to spend the afternoon observing the dealership's normal operations. He chose a discreet spot where he could watch all interactions between staff and customers. The first test came when a man in his 50s wearing simple work clothes walked into the dealership. Robert watched closely to see how Michael would react. To his surprise, Michael approached the man immediately. "Good afternoon, sir. How can I help you?" "Good afternoon. I'd like to take a look at your used cars." "Of course, sir. I'll show you our selection. Are you looking for anything specific?" Robert smiled faintly. It was a start. The man didn't end up buying anything that day, but was treated politely throughout his visit. Michael even took down his contact for future offers. The second test came an hour later when a young student entered the dealership. "Good afternoon," she said timidly. "Can I look at the cars?" Tyler, the young salesman who had been rude to Robert earlier, approached her. "Of course you can. Are you interested?" "In a specific model?" "Actually, I'm still researching. I'm graduating next year and want to start understanding prices." "Perfect. I'll show you some different options and explain the benefits of each." Robert kept watching. Tyler spent 40 minutes showing her cars, explaining technical features and financing options, even knowing she wouldn't buy anything that day. By evening, Robert gathered the team again. "Everyone, I observed your service this afternoon and saw positive changes. Michael and Tyler, in particular, treated the customers who came in very well." The two looked relieved. "But I want to make it clear that this needs to be the standard from now on, not the exception. Tomorrow, I'll bring in some people to test our service." "What kind of test?" asked Jennifer. "I'll ask people from different socio-economic backgrounds to visit our dealership as potential customers. I want to see how you react without knowing it's a test." Tension filled the room again. "Don't worry," Robert said. "If you treat everyone with respect, there won't be any problems." Robert left the dealership that evening with mixed feelings. On one hand, he was pleased with the initial changes he'd witnessed. On the other, he knew transforming a company's culture would be a long and challenging process. That night, he dined again at Mr. Yamamoto's restaurant. "Mr. Wilson, how was your first day as a dealership owner?" the Japanese man asked. "Interesting, Mr. Yamamoto, very interesting. Did you manage to teach the lesson you wanted?" "I think I've started to teach, but teaching takes time." "In Japan, we say the best revenge is turning your enemy into a friend." Robert reflected on that phrase. "Perhaps that's exactly what I'm trying to do." On Tuesday, Robert arrived at the dealership with 5 test customers he had recruited among his acquaintances. There was a retired fisherman wearing simple clothes, a middle-class homemaker, a young college student, an elegant elderly woman, and a well-dressed businessman. Robert instructed each of them to visit the store at different times, pretending to be interested in buying a car, and to report back on how they were treated. The first to arrive was Mr. Walter, the retired fisherman. He walked into the store wearing a faded polo shirt and old jeans. Michael was near the entrance and approached. Immediately, "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" "Good morning, young man. I'd like to look at some used cars for my daughter." "Of course, sir. Let's head to our pre-owned section. What kind of car does she prefer?" Robert watched from a distance, pleased with the respectful service Mr. Walter was receiving. The second test was with Mrs. Barbara, the homemaker. She was assisted by Jennifer, who was extremely attentive and patient, explaining financing options in detail. The third test, with the young college student, was handled by Tyler. The salesman showed several options for both used and new cars, treated the young man with respect, and even offered water and coffee. The elegant elderly woman was assisted by Brandon, who was professional and courteous without being overly flattering. The final test with the well-dressed businessman served as a control. Robert wanted to see if they would continue treating traditional clients well while improving service for others. The businessman was served excellently, but no better than the others had been. It was exactly the result Robert had hoped for. At the end of the day, Robert gathered the team again. Everyone, today you passed the first test. Every customer who visited our store was treated well regardless of appearance. The team seemed relieved. But I want you to understand this wasn't a one-time test. From now on, I may bring in test customers at any moment. And more importantly, every real customer who walks in here is a test. Robert paused. Now, I'll talk about some changes I plan to implement in the coming weeks. The first change was the complete elimination of any discrimination in service. Robert made it clear that any employee caught mistreating a customer would be immediately dismissed, no exceptions. The second change was a customer service training program for the entire team. Robert had hired a specialized consulting firm to conduct the course. The third change was restructuring the commission system. Instead of earning commissions only on closed sales, salespeople would also receive bonuses for service rated highly by customers, even if it didn't lead to immediate sales. The idea, Robert explained, is to reward good service, not just sales, because good service generates sales in the long run. The fourth change was creating a direct communication channel between customers and management. Robert would install a suggestion and complaint box, and all feedback would be taken seriously. Team, do you have any questions about these changes? Robert asked. Jennifer raised her hand. Mr. Robert, how much time do we have to adjust to all these changes? Jennifer, it's not about time. It's about attitude. Treating people with respect isn't something you learn. It's something you choose to do. Brandon asked another question. What if a customer is genuinely difficult or disrespectful toward us? Brandon, even in those cases, you must remain polite. If a customer becomes abusive, call me to handle the situation, but never respond with disrespect. Michael, who had remained silent during the meeting, finally spoke. Mr. Robert, may I say something? Of course. I want everyone here to know that I've made serious mistakes in the past. I judged people by their appearance and gave the wrong instructions to the team. I apologize to all of you for that. Michael's honesty surprised Robert in a good way, and I want to say that I'm committed to changing, not just because I need the job, but because I realized I was wrong. Thank you for your honesty, Michael, said Robert. This kind of reflection is the first step toward real change. The following weeks were a time of intense transformation. Robert spent every morning at the dealership, observing, guiding, and implementing changes. The customer service training was conducted in 3 4-hour sessions. Every employee participated, from the sales team to the cleaning staff. Robert was particularly impressed by the progress of Tyler, the young salesman. Not only had he changed his attitude, but he also became one of the most effective salespeople on the team, precisely because he treated every customer with equal attention. Michael also showed genuine change. Robert watched as he personally assisted a group of students who visited the dealership on a school field trip, patiently explaining how different types of engines worked. But not everything was easy. Some employees resisted the changes, arguing that it was a waste of time to assist customers who obviously weren't going to buy. One senior salesman, Richard, was particularly resistant. Mr. Robert, with all due respect, but I have 20 years of sales experience. I know a serious customer when I see one. Richard, I also have many years of business experience, and I've learned never to underestimate anyone. But it's a matter of efficiency, Mr. Robert. If I spend 2 hours with someone who won't buy, I miss helping someone who might. Richard, give me a concrete example. When was the last time you lost a sale because you were helping someone who didn't buy? Richard thought for a moment. I can't recall a specific situation, but then you're basing your sales strategy on an assumption, not facts. Maybe, but Richard, I'll propose a challenge. For 1 month, assist every customer with the same attention, regardless of appearance. If your sales drop by the end of the month, we'll go back to the old method. And if they increase, sir, then you'll understand why I'm making these changes. Richard accepted the challenge, though clearly skeptical. During this time, Robert also made physical changes to the dealership. He installed a more comfortable waiting area with coffee and water available for all visitors. He created a children's space for clients who came with kids. Most importantly, he removed any signs or barriers that might intimidate customers unfamiliar with luxury environments. The reception staff was retrained to greet every visitor the same way, offering help without judging their intent to buy. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 3 weeks after the first changes, Robert received his first significant feedback. Mrs. Dorothy, a retiree who had visited the dealership the week before, returned with her son. "Mr. Robert?" she asked at the reception. "May I speak to the owner?" "That's me. How can I help you?" "Sir, I was here last week looking at cars for my son. The salesman, that young man with dark hair, treated me so kindly that I decided to come back." The young man was Tyler. "That's wonderful, Mrs. Dorothy. What can I do for you?" "Dyson, it's just that my son decided to buy a car, and I told him it had to be here because of the treatment I received." Mrs. Dorothy's son, a man around 40, confirmed. "It's true. My mother was impressed by how polite you all were. Usually at other dealerships they treat her like she's in the way." Robert smiled, feeling his efforts were paying off. "Tyler," he called, "come here, please." Tyler approached and immediately recognized Mrs. Dorothy. "Mrs. Dorothy, what a pleasure to see you again." "Hello, dear. I brought my son here to buy a car. Can you show him the ones we talked about?" "Of course I can." Robert watched Tyler handle the negotiation with professionalism and care. The young man explained all the options, answered every question, offered a test drive, and discussed payment terms. In the end, Mrs. Dorothy's son bought a new sedan, financed over 48 months. "Tyler," Robert said after the customers left, "how do you feel about that sale?" "Mr. Wilson, it was the best sale I've ever made." "Why?" "Because I knew I made a difference. Mrs. Dorothy chose our dealership because of the service, not just the price or the car. And that's important? It's everything, Mr. Wilson. I feel proud of my work." Cases like this began repeating themselves. Customers who had been treated well returned to buy or recommended the dealership to family and friends. Within a month, sales at Luxury Auto Tampa increased by 30%, defying all the pessimistic predictions of some employees. Richard, the skeptical salesman, approached Robert at the end of the test month. "Mr. Wilson, I have to admit I was wrong." "How so, Richard?" "My sales went up 50% this month, and more than half came from customers I'd normally ignore." "Can you give me examples?" "Last week I helped a guy who came in on a motorcycle, all covered in grease. I thought it'd be a waste of time, but I decided to give him attention. Turns out he owns a mechanic shop and wanted to replace his company's fleet. He bought 5 cars at once." Robert nodded, pleased. "And there's more," Richard continued. "A lady in her 70s came to look at cars. Talking to her, I found out she wanted to buy cars for her 4 kids. I closed 4 sales in a week. And what did that teach you? That I've been wasting opportunities for years, and worse, I was being rude to people who didn't deserve it. Richard, I appreciate your honesty, and I'm glad you've learned." "Mr. Wilson, can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you know this would work?" Robert thought for a moment. "Richard, it wasn't about knowing. It was about believing. I've always believed treating people well is the foundation of any lasting business." 2 months after taking over the dealership, Robert implemented his most ambitious change, a special service program for people with disabilities, seniors, and low-income families. The program included accessibility features, salespeople trained to address specific needs, and special financing options for those who needed them. "Mr. Wilson," said Charles, who had adapted well to the changes, "won't this hurt our profitability?" "Charles, let me tell you a secret. Loyal customers are the best guarantee of long-term profitability." "How so?" "A satisfied customer buys from you more than once and refers others to you. It's much cheaper to keep a customer than to win a new one." "That makes sense. Besides, Charles, there are customers in every economic segment. Our job is to find the right car for each one, not judge who deserves good service." The program was an immediate success. Within 3 months, the dealership had become a regional benchmark for inclusive service. Robert also began receiving recognition from local organizations. The Tampa Bay Area Association for People with Physical Disabilities sent a letter of appreciation. The Municipal Council for the Elderly gave the dealership an honorable mention, but the recognition that touched Robert most came from an unexpected source. It was a Thursday afternoon when a man around 40 years old walked into the showroom accompanied by a girl of about 10 who used a wheelchair. "Good afternoon," the man said. "I heard you have cars adapted for wheelchair users." "We do, sir," replied Jennifer, who had become an expert in assisting people with special needs. "May I show you some options?" As Jennifer presented the adapted vehicles, Robert observed the girl's interaction with the surroundings. She seemed fascinated by the cars, asking surprisingly advanced technical questions for her age. "Daddy, does this one have power steering?" the girl asked. "Yes, sweetheart. And it also has an automatic transmission. What about the pedals? Are they special?" Jennifer approached the wheelchair, crouching to the girl's eye level. "Would you like me to explain how the adapted pedals work?" The girl's eyes lit up. "Can you? I love cars." Jennifer spent 20 minutes explaining in detail how the adaptations worked, even letting the girl sit in the driver's seat and try the controls. When the visit ended, the father turned to Robert. "Sir, my daughter has a disability that left her paraplegic 2 years ago. Since then, she's lost interest in almost everything. But today, for the first time in a long while, I saw her truly excited." Robert felt a lump in his throat. "We don't need to buy the car right now," the man continued, "but I wanted to thank you for the kindness you showed. It meant a lot to her." "It was our pleasure to assist you," Robert replied. "And when the time comes to buy, you know where to find us." After the father and daughter left, Jennifer approached Robert. "Mr. Wilson, thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide this kind of service." "Why are you thanking me, Jennifer?" "Because I feel useful in a way I never have before. It's not just about selling cars, it's about helping people." "Jennifer, that's exactly the point. When we focus on helping people, sales happen naturally." 3 months later, the man returned with his daughter and bought an adapted car. But more importantly, he referred the dealership to a local wheelchair users association, leading to several additional sales. 6 months after taking over the dealership, Robert decided to conduct a full evaluation of the results. Sales had increased by 70% compared to the same period the previous year. Customer satisfaction, measured through surveys, was at 95%, an exceptionally high rate for the automotive industry. Employee turnover had dropped dramatically. Of the 15 employees who were there when Robert took over, 14 remained. The only one who left did so to start his own business, using the service principles he had learned. Even more impressive, 3 employees had been promoted, including Tyler, who became sales supervisor. Michael had transformed into an exemplary manager, known throughout the region for his dedication and respect toward customers. "Mr. Wilson," Michael said during an evaluation meeting, "I wanted to thank you for the opportunity you gave me." "No need to thank me, Michael. You earned your place here." "I know I did, but I also know many people in your position would have fired me immediately after finding out what I did." "Michael, everyone makes mistakes. What matters is learning from them. I've learned a lot, and not just about customer service. I've learned about respecting people. And what do you plan to do with that knowledge?" "I want to help other employees learn too. And I want this dealership to always be an example of how to treat people right." Robert smiled, pleased with the transformation he had witnessed. "Michael, can I tell you something?" "Of course. When I bought this company, I wasn't just trying to teach a lesson about respect. I was also testing a theory." "What theory?" "The theory that people can change when they're given real opportunities to change, not just punishments." "You were testing that on me?" "On you, on Tyler, on Jennifer, on the whole team, and on myself." "What do you mean, on yourself?" "Michael, it would have been easier for me to just sue you all for discrimination and move on. But that wouldn't have changed anything. You'd keep discriminating against people, and others would keep suffering from discrimination." Michael reflected on those words. "So you chose the harder path." "I chose the path I thought could make a real difference. And it worked." It worked because you all wanted it to. If you'd resisted the changes, none of this would have succeeded. 2 years after taking over the dealership, Robert received an unexpected offer. Dr. William called one December morning with surprising news. "Robert, I've received a buyout offer for the dealership." "From who?" "A business group from New York. They're offering double what you paid for the company." Robert was silent for a few seconds. "Why do they want to buy it?" "From what I understand, they've heard about the operation's success and want to replicate the model in other cities." "Replicate the model?" "Exactly. They want to hire you to oversee implementing the same service system in other dealerships under their group." Robert was intrigued by the offer, but also concerned. "William, do you think they truly understand what we do here?" "Hard to say. They talk a lot about profits and efficiency, but little about respect and dignity." "Then they probably don't get it." "Probably not. I'll decline the offer." "Robert, it's a lot of money." "Are you sure?" "I am. This isn't a business model that can just be copied. It's a philosophy that has to be genuinely lived." Robert hung up and pondered the proposal. Selling and pocketing the profit was tempting, but he knew it would likely destroy everything they'd built. He decided to discuss the offer with the team without revealing his decision. "Everyone," Robert said in a meeting, "I've received an offer to sell the dealership. I want your thoughts." The reaction was surprise and concern. "Mr. Robert, would the new owners keep our team?" Jennifer asked. "Probably. They're interested in our commercial success." "And would they keep our way of working?" Tyler asked. "I can't guarantee that." Charles raised an important point. "Mr. Robert, if you sell, what will you do?" "I haven't decided yet. Maybe go back to fishing. Maybe invest in another kind of business." Michael, who had stayed quiet, finally spoke. "Mr. Robert, can I give my personal opinion?" "Of course. I think you should stay." "Why?" "Because what we've built here is special. It's not just a profitable business. It's a place where people are respected and where we've all learned to be better." Jennifer agreed. "Michael's right. If new owners come in and change how we work, it'll be like all our effort was for nothing." Tyler added, "Mr. Robert, I was a different person before working with you. What I've learned here will stay with me forever. It'd be sad to see that lost." Robert was moved by the team's words. "What if I stayed but expanded the business, opened branches in other cities along the Florida coast?" Everyone's eyes lit up. "That would be amazing," Jennifer said. "We could teach others how to do things the right way." "And I could help train staff for the new locations," offered Michael. "Me too," said Tyler. Robert smiled, feeling he had found the answer he was looking for. "Then it's settled. We'll decline the buyout offer and start planning our expansion." The decision to expand brought new challenges. Robert needed to find suitable locations, hire new teams, and most importantly, ensure the culture of respect was maintained across all branches. He decided to start with a location in Clearwater, a neighboring city to Tampa. The chosen spot was smaller than the original dealership, but well positioned. To manage the new branch, Robert promoted Tyler, who had shown not only technical competence, but also a deep understanding of the company's values. "Tyler, are you sure you're ready for this responsibility?" "Mr. Wilson, in the last 2 years, I've learned more than in my entire professional career. I feel prepared. Remember, it's not enough to train the team to sell cars. They must be trained to treat people with dignity." "I understand completely. And can I count on Mr. Michael and Jennifer's help with training?" "Of course. In fact, I want all our experienced team members involved in training for the new branches." The opening of the Clearwater branch was a landmark event. Robert decided to do something unusual. Instead of a traditional party for VIPs and officials, he organized a community-wide celebration. For 3 days, the doors were open to everyone, featuring car displays, consumer rights talks, and activities for children. Anyone could come in, look at the cars, ask questions, and receive excellent service, regardless of whether they intended to buy. "Mr. Wilson, don't you think we'll get too many curious visitors who won't buy anything?" asked one of the new salesmen. "I hope so," Robert replied. "The more people who learn about our way of doing business, the better." "But isn't that a loss?" "Son, Investing in relationships is never a loss. During the 3-day opening, thousands of people visited the dealership. Children played in the kids area while parents spoke with salespeople. Elderly customers asked about adaptations for their needs. Young adults explored first car options. The results exceeded all expectations. In the 2 weeks following the opening, the Clearwater branch broke sales records for a new location. More importantly, 80% of buyers cited the exceptional service as their main reason for choosing the dealership. "Mr. Wilson," Tyler said at the end of the first month, "I think I fully understand your philosophy now." "How so?" "When we treat people well, they don't just buy cars. They buy the experience of being respected." "To us, exactly, Tyler. And once someone has that experience, they won't want to buy from places where they aren't treated with respect. That's why our customers are so loyal." Precisely. The success of the Clearwater branch motivated Robert to accelerate expansion plans. Within 6 months, he opened 2 more locations, one in St. Petersburg and another in Daytona Beach. Each opening followed the same model: community-focused events, prioritizing relationships over immediate sales, and intensive staff training in respect and dignity. To oversee operations, Robert created an internal training program called the School of Dignified Service. Michael became its director, responsible for training managers and salespeople across all branches. "Michael, could you have imagined 3 years ago that you'd be teaching others about customer respect?" "Never, Mr. Wilson. And I thought I knew everything about sales back then. Time what changed? My understanding of what selling means. Before I sold cars, now I sell relationships." "Explain that better." "When a customer buys a car from us, they're not just purchasing a vehicle. They're buying the assurance that they'll be treated well after the sale, that they'll be respected if they have any issues, and that they can recommend our dealership to their family without fear of embarrassment." Robert nodded, proud of Michael's growth. "And why does this work commercially? Because a satisfied customer comes back and refers others. It's a virtuous cycle." "Perfect. That's exactly what you should teach the new employees." 3. Years after taking over his first dealership, Robert had built a network of 4 locations that became a benchmark in the Tampa Bay area. The combined revenue of the 4 dealerships was 5 times higher than that of the original store when he bought it. Even more impressive, customer satisfaction consistently remained above 90% across all branches. Robert had also become a respected figure in the local business community. Other entrepreneurs sought his advice on customer service and team management. But the recognition that filled him with the most pride came one Friday afternoon while he was visiting the original dealership. A woman in her 70s walked in, looking specifically for him. "Are you Mr. Robert, the owner of this dealership?" "Yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" "Sir, my name is Grace. I came here to thank you in person." "Thank me for what, Mrs. Grace?" 2 years ago, my grandson brought my daughter here to buy a car. She's visually impaired and needed a car with some special adaptations." Robert vaguely remembered the case. At every other dealership they visited, they were treated with contempt. They were told they didn't have cars for people like that it was too much trouble. And here was different? Completely different. That young woman, Jennifer, and Mr. Michael spent an entire afternoon explaining the options, let my daughter try everything, and treated her like a normal person. Robert felt warmth in his chest. "I'm glad they had a good experience." "Sir, it's more than that. My daughter was so moved by how she was treated that she decided to go back to work. She had been depressed for years because of the prejudice she faced." "That's wonderful, Mrs. Grace. She got a job at a company that values people with disabilities. She's happy again. And it all started when she was respected here at your dealership." Robert's eyes grew moist. "Thank you for sharing that with me, Mrs. Grace." "No, sir, thank you. You gave my daughter her self-respect back." After Mrs. Grace left, Robert sat alone in his office for a few minutes, reflecting on their conversation. He had begun this journey driven by a sense of personal humiliation. He wanted to teach a lesson to those who had mistreated him, but along the way he discovered something far greater. He realized that respecting people isn't just about courtesy or business strategy. It's about recognizing human dignity in every person who crosses our path. He learned that small actions can have enormous impacts on people's lives. And he discovered that transforming a business is, in truth, about transforming people. And transformed people change the world around them. 4 years after that day, he was humiliated at a dealership. Robert Wilson had built not just a successful business, but a legacy of respect and dignity. His 4 dealerships employed over 60 people, all trained to treat every customer as a human being worthy of respect. Hundreds of customers had positive experiences that changed their expectations of how they should be treated in commercial settings. Dozens of employees had learned lessons about respect that they would carry for life and pass on to their families. And it had all started with a simple decision. Instead of responding to disrespect with more disrespect, to respond with transformation. "Mr. Robert," said Michael during an end-of-year meeting with all the branch managers, "may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course." "Do you regret buying that first dealership?" Robert smiled. "Michael, that was the best decision I ever made in my life. Even though it was motivated by anger, the anger was just the trigger. What really motivated me was the possibility of proving there was a better way to do business." "And did you prove it?" "I think we proved it together." Jennifer, who had become manager of the St. Petersburg branch, made an observation. "Mr. Robert, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you had simply sued the dealership for discrimination instead of buying it." "What do you think would have happened, Jennifer?" "Maybe you would have won a settlement, but nothing would have changed. The discrimination would have continued." "Exactly. And dozens of people would still be humiliated every day." Tyler, now a regional director, added, "And we wouldn't have learned the lessons we did." "What lessons were those, Tyler?" "That treating people well isn't just the right thing to it's also the smartest thing to do commercially. And that every person has dignity, regardless of appearance or social status." Michael finished. Robert looked at his leadership team. Michael, Jennifer, Tyler, and the other branch managers. They had all changed profoundly over the years. "Everyone, I have an announcement to make." They all paid attention. "I've decided it's time to take the next step in our evolution." "What step?" Jennifer asked. "We're going to create a training institute for dignified service. Not just for our employees, but for any company that wants to learn." The reaction was immediate enthusiasm. "Does that mean we'll teach other companies to treat customers the way we do?" Tyler asked. "Exactly. Imagine how many people will no longer suffer discrimination if we can spread our philosophy." Michael was excited by the idea. "Mr. Robert, I'd like to lead this institute." "Why you, Michael?" "Because I used to be the person who discriminated. I know exactly how that mindset works and how to change it." "Good answer. You're hired as director of the Dignified Service Institute." In the following months, Robert and his team worked tirelessly to structure the institute. They developed training methodologies, created educational materials, and established partnerships with interested companies. The institute's first course was offered to business owners in the Tampa Bay area. 25 companies participated, sending their managers and supervisors. Michael led the training, sharing his own transformation story and the practical results they had achieved. "Gentlemen," Michael said at the start of the course, "I was on the other side a few years ago. I was the person who judged customers by their appearance and treated poorly those who didn't seem to have money." "And what changed?" one participant asked. "I learned I was losing money and hurting people at the same time. I discovered it's possible to be commercially successful and still treat everyone with dignity." "But how do you ensure employees follow these guidelines?" another business owner asked. "Constant training, leadership by example, and creating a culture where disrespecting customers is unacceptable." The course was a success. Over the next 3 months, several participating companies reported significant increases in sales and customer satisfaction. A clothing store doubled its revenue after stopping discrimination based on attire. A bank drastically reduced complaints after training employees to treat all customers with equal attention. The success of the institute caught the attention of the local press. Robert was interviewed by newspapers and radio stations in the region, always emphasizing that the goal was not philanthropy, but smart business based on respect. "Mr. Wilson," asked a journalist, What was the biggest lesson from these 5 years? That transforming a company is, in reality, transforming people. And transformed people create extraordinary results. And what is your greatest pride? Seeing people like Michael, who used to discriminate, become multipliers of respect. That proves real change is possible. What are your plans for the future? To keep expanding, not just geographically, but philosophically. We want respecting customers to be the norm, not the exception. The interview had a positive impact, attracting new companies interested in the Institute's training programs. 5 years after that initial humiliation, Robert Wilson had built a small empire based on respect. His dealerships were market leaders in the region. His training institute served businesses across various sectors. Hundreds of employees had learned the importance of treating people with dignity. But the most emotional moment was yet to come. It was a Monday morning when Dr. Patterson called with surprising news. "Robert, do you remember that business group from New York that wanted to buy your dealership 3 years ago?" "I do. Why?" "They reached out again, but this time they don't want to buy your stores." "What do they want?" "They want to hire your institute to train all the group's dealerships across the country." Robert fell silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "How many dealerships?" 42, spread across 12 states. "And do they understand our philosophy?" "From what their representative said, they've studied your results for 3 years. They realized it's not just a service model, but a complete cultural transformation." "Interesting. I'll discuss this with Michael and the team." That afternoon, Robert gathered his leadership team to discuss the proposal. "Everyone, we have an opportunity to take our principles nationwide, but that comes with enormous responsibility." "How so?" asked Jennifer. "If we accept, we'll train over 1,000 employees in 12 states. If we don't do it well, it could damage our reputation. If we do it right, we could impact the lives of thousands of customers across the country." Michael spoke first. "Mr. Wilson, I think we should accept. If we can transform 1,000 people the way we were transformed, imagine the positive impact." "But do you think we're ready for a challenge of this scale?" Robert asked. Tyler responded, "Mr. Wilson, over the last 5 years, we've proven our methodology works. We have concrete results, an experienced team, and a solid philosophy. And besides," Jennifer added, "if we don't take our message beyond here, others will keep suffering what you went through that first time." Robert considered the team's arguments. "All right, we'll accept, but on one condition." "What?" they all asked in unison. "We'll do it our way. We won't adjust our philosophy to please anyone. Respect is non-negotiable." The national expansion of the Dignified Service Institute was carefully planned. Robert decided each state would be served by a pair of trainers, an experienced employee from his dealerships and a new instructor hired specifically for the project. Michael took on overall coordination, traveling across the country to oversee trainings and ensure standards were upheld. Jennifer was responsible for training the new instructors, passing on not just the techniques, but above all, the philosophy behind the work. Tyler coordinated the logistics and technical support for all operations. The first national training took place in New York at a dealership that had been caught discriminating against elderly customers. The company's management had decided that radical changes were necessary. "Team," Michael said to the group of 20 salespeople, "I'll start by sharing my personal story." He recounted how he had discriminated against Robert, how he had been confronted with the consequences of his actions, and how he had learned the importance of respect. "The difference between the salesman I was and the salesman I am today isn't about skill. It's about attitude. I learned that every person who walks into a store is a human being deserving of respect." One of the salespeople raised their hand. "But what if the person really can't afford to buy? Isn't it a waste of time?" "I'll answer your question with another question," Michael replied. "How can you tell if someone can or can't afford to buy just by looking at them? By their clothes, the car they drove in? Wrong. You can't know. And more than that, even if they don't buy today, they might buy tomorrow or refer someone who will." Michael shared real-life examples of sales that had resulted from respectful service to people who initially seemed unpromising. The main point, he continued, isn't sales strategy, it's human dignity. Every person deserves to be treated with respect no matter what. The training lasted 3 days and included practical simulations, case studies, and group discussions about bias and discrimination. By the end, the team had visibly transformed. The atmosphere at the dealership changed, and the results came quickly. Within 2 months, sales increased by 40% and complaints dropped drastically. Similar results were repeated in other cities. Dealerships in Georgia, Miami, Pennsylvania, and other states reported significant improvements after the training, but the case that left the deepest impression on Robert happened in Atlanta. The local dealership was notorious for severe discrimination against black customers and those with strong regional accents. Clients reported feeling humiliated and even facing direct insults. Michael arrived in the city knowing he'd face resistance. At the first meeting with the team, the hostility was palpable. "You came all the way from New York to teach us how to do our jobs?" asked a veteran salesperson. "We're not here to teach anyone how to work," Michael replied calmly. "We're here to share an approach that has worked. And why do you think you know better than us?" "We don't think we know better, but we do know there's a better way to treat people." Michael shared his personal story in even greater detail, emphasizing how he had once been prejudiced and how it had hurt both customers and his own professional success. "Man," one of the EEI's salespeople said, "you're saying you used to treat people badly because of their clothes?" "Exactly, and I lost a lot of sales because of it." "And now?" "Now I treat everyone the same, and I sell a lot more." The conversation turned into an open discussion about regional, racial, and social biases. Michael didn't judge. He simply asked whether those prejudices actually helped their business. "Team, I'll propose a test," Michael said on the second day. "For 1 week, treat every customer with the same respect no matter what. If sales don't improve, you can go back to the old way." The team accepted the challenge. A week later, the results were astounding. That week's sales were 60% higher than the previous month's average. "How is this possible?" asked the salesperson who had been most resistant. "Simple," Michael replied. "You stopped losing customers because of silly prejudices. But we've always worked this way, and you've always lost sales this way. You just didn't realize it." The salesperson fell silent, deep in thought. "You're right. Last week I helped a guy who I thought was a construction worker. Turns out he owns a construction company and wants to buy a fleet of cars. What if you had treated him poorly? I would have lost the sale, and he would have spoken badly about us to others." Exactly. Cases like these multiplied across the country. In 12 months, the Dignified Service Institute had trained over 1,000 employees at 42 dealerships. The results were exceptional. An average 45% increase in sales, 70% reduction in complaints, and significant improvement in customer satisfaction. More importantly, hundreds of employees had learned lessons about respect and dignity they'd carry for life. Robert monitored the results with satisfaction, but also with a growing sense that his mission was just beginning. "Michael," he said during a review meeting, "I think it's time we take the next step." "What step?" "Expanding beyond dealerships, bringing our philosophy to other sectors." "How so?" "Banks, stores, restaurants, hospitals, anywhere. People are served by others." Michael got excited by the idea. "Mr. Wilson, that would be incredible. Imagine the impact if we could transform service across all sectors." "That's exactly what I'm thinking." 6 months later, the Dignified Service Institute launched its multi-sector program. Companies from various fields began requesting training. A supermarket chain trained employees to treat elderly customers with more patience and respect. A hospital implemented protocols to serve low-income patients with the same quality as those with expensive health plans. A phone company completely changed its customer service approach, focusing on solving problems rather than just following scripts. Each success fueled Robert and his team's motivation to keep expanding. 7 years after that initial humiliation, Robert Wilson had created something much bigger than a business. He'd created a movement. The Dignified Service Institute operated in 15 states, had trained over 5,000 employees across different sectors and influenced millions of business client interactions. Robert became a national reference for customer service and organizational transformation. He received invitations to speak at universities and business events across the country. But he never forgot where it all began. A dealership in Tampa, where a simple man was judged by appearances and decided to turn humiliation into an opportunity for change. During one of his most memorable lectures at a university in New York, a student asked a question that deeply moved Robert. "Professor Wilson, when was the moment you knew you'd truly transformed someone?" Robert thought for a few seconds before answering. "It was when Michael, the manager who'd humiliated me, came to me 2 years later to say he'd taught his own son about the importance of respecting all people, regardless of appearance or social status." Why was that moment special? Because I realized the transformation had moved beyond the company and reached his family. And when a child learns these values, they likely won't discriminate against anyone when they grow up. So you're changing the next generation. It's not me doing the changing. It's the people who learned and chose to teach their children. That's how society transforms. One person at a time, one family at a time. In the audience, a teacher raised her hand. "Mr. Wilson, do you believe it's possible to completely eliminate discrimination in commercial service?" Teacher: "I don't know if it's possible to eliminate completely, but I know we can drastically reduce it. And every person who is no longer humiliated because of their appearance makes all the effort worthwhile. And economically, is this model sustainable? Not just sustainable, but more profitable than the discriminatory model. Businesses that respect all customers have more loyal clients, better reputations, and higher long-term profits." The lecture ended with a standing ovation. Several students approached Robert to ask additional questions and share personal experiences of discrimination. "Professor," said a young black student, "thank you for your work. I've faced discrimination in many stores, and I know how humiliating it is." "And now, do you encounter less discrimination?" "Sasamaj, yes. Several companies that trained with you have really changed. I can tell the difference." Conversations like this reinforced Robert's conviction that he was on the right path. 8 years after beginning his journey, Robert received an invitation that moved him deeply. The city of Tampa wanted to honor him as Citizen of the Year for his contributions to improving public service in the city. "Mr. Wilson," said the mayor during the ceremony, "you've made Tampa a national benchmark for respectful service. Tourists often remark on the politeness and courtesy they encounter here. Mr. Mayor, this achievement isn't mine alone. It belongs to hundreds of people who chose to treat others with dignity. But it all started with your initiative. It all started with a humiliation I decided to turn into an opportunity for change." In the audience at the ceremony were Michael, Jennifer, Tyler, and dozens of employees from the dealerships. Also present was Dr. William, who had been part of the journey from the very beginning. "Dr. Patterson," Robert said after the ceremony, "did you ever imagine that first debt purchase would lead to all this?" "To us, never, Robert. I thought you were just trying to teach a lesson to those who mistreated you. That's all it was at first." "And when did that change?" "It changed when I realized that teaching one person a lesson doesn't solve the problem. The problem only gets solved when you turn people into agents of change." "And did the outcome exceed your expectations?" "It exceeded all of them. I never imagined a personal humiliation could become a lifelong mission." 9 years after. That day he was thrown out of a dealership. Robert Wilson had become one of the most respected figures in the country in the field of customer service. His dealerships remained market leaders. His institute had trained over 10,000 employees nationwide. Hundreds of companies had transformed their organizational cultures based on his teachings. But Robert knew there was still much work to be done. "Michael," he said during a planning meeting, "I think it's time to take our work international." "How so?" "We've received invitations from companies in Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay. It seems our reputation has crossed borders." "And you want to accept?" "I do. Discrimination isn't just a problem here. It's a human problem. But won't it be difficult to adapt our methods to other cultures?" "Michael, respect is universal. There may be cultural differences in how it's shown, but the basic principle is the same everywhere. The international expansion began with a pilot project in Argentina. A network of dealerships in Buenos Aires had requested training after seeing the results achieved in the US. Michael led the team that traveled there. To his surprise, he encountered problems very similar to those they had faced back home. Discrimination based on social class, accent, and physical appearance. "It's incredible," Michael remarked to Robert over the phone. "The prejudices are practically the same, only the details differ." "And how receptive is the team?" "Initially skeptical, as always, but when we started showing the practical results, they got excited. The training in Argentina was a success. In 3 months, the Argentine dealerships reported significant increases in sales and customer satisfaction. More importantly, the philosophy of respect had found fertile ground in Argentine culture. Employees who learned the principles began applying them spontaneously in their personal lives. The success in Argentina opened doors to other countries. Within 2 years, the Dignified Service Institute was operating in 6 Latin American countries. 10 years after that initial humiliation, Robert Wilson had built something that surpassed his most ambitious expectations. His business philosophy, based on respect, had spread to 3 countries, influenced tens of thousands of employees, and improved the experience of millions of customers. But the moment that moved him the most was yet to come. It was a Thursday morning when Robert was visiting the original dealership in Tampa. He observed the store's normal activity, salespeople assisting customers with courtesy, families being welcomed regardless of their appearance, children playing in the kids' area while parents negotiated. That's when he saw a scene that deeply touched him. A middle-aged man, dressed in simple work clothes, entered the store, accompanied by his wife and 2 teenage children. The family seemed a little intimidated by the luxurious environment. Jennifer, who still worked at the original store, approached the family with a genuine smile. "Good afternoon, how can I help you?" "Good afternoon," the man replied timidly. "We'd like to look at cars, but we're not sure if—" "Not sure of what?" Jennifer asked kindly. "If we can afford anything here." "Sir, everyone can afford something here. We have cars at all price points and all kinds of payment options. Come, let me show you what we have." Robert watched Jennifer spend an hour showing the family cars, explaining features, offering test drives, and discussing financing. She treated the family exactly as she would any VIP customer. In the end, the family didn't buy a car that day, but they left the store with all the information they needed and a promise to return once they finalized their budget. "Jennifer," Robert said after the family left, "how did it feel assisting that family?" "Normal, Mr. Wilson. Why? They didn't buy anything." "So what? They were polite, asked smart questions, and showed real interest. I'm sure they'll come back when they're ready. And if they don't, even so, it was worth it. They left here feeling respected. That's already important." Robert smiled, realizing Jennifer had fully internalized the philosophy he had tried to teach. "Jennifer, you've changed so much these past 10 years. "I have, Mr. Wilson, and I'm grateful every day for learning how to treat people right." "Why are you grateful?" "Because it made me a better person, not just a better employee. I teach my kids to respect everyone, no matter what." "And do they follow those lessons?" "Always. My daughter works at a restaurant and treats every customer equally well. My son is in college and tells me how some classmates judge people by appearance, but he doesn't do that." Robert felt warmth in his chest. The transformation had spread beyond the company, reached families, and was now influencing the next generation. "Jennifer, can I tell you something?" "Of course. Stories like yours convince me that all the effort was worth it." "Thank you, Mr. Wilson, but you should know that we're the ones who should be thanking you. You taught us how to be better people." That evening, Robert dined alone at Mr. Yamamoto's restaurant, reflecting on the 10 years that had passed. "Mr. Robert," said the Japanese man, "you seem thoughtful today." "I'm reflecting on the past 10 years, Mr. Yamamoto." "And what's the result of that reflection?" "I turned a personal humiliation into the greatest achievement of my life." "How so?" 10 years ago, I was mistreated in a store because of my appearance. Today, thousands of people work differently because they decided no one else should. Go through that. And are you satisfied? I'm proud, but I also know there's still much work to be done. More work. Mr. Yamamoto, there are still millions of people being discriminated against every day. There are still thousands of businesses that judge customers by their looks. Our mission is far from over, but you've already done so much. I have. But once you realize you can make a difference in people's lives, you can't stop. See, it's like a responsibility. Exactly. A responsibility to all the people who will still be humiliated tomorrow if we don't keep working to change it. The next day, Robert gathered his leadership team to discuss plans for the next 10 years. Everyone, we've reached an important milestone. 10 years of work, thousands of lives impacted, hundreds of businesses transformed. But I want to know, do you think our mission is over? Not at all, Michael replied immediately. I still see discrimination in many places. Me too, said Jennifer. My kids tell me about places where they get poor service just for being young. And I see businesses that still resist change, added Tyler. They think treating all customers well is a waste of time. So we agree there's still work to do, said Robert. Yes, but what's the next step? Asked Michael. The next step is to systematize everything we've learned. Create a methodology so effective it can be replicated anywhere in the world. Like a manual? More than a manual. A permanent school for training in dignified service. The idea of creating a permanent school excited the whole team. In the following weeks, they worked on the design of a campus dedicated exclusively to teaching respectful service. The campus would be built in Tampa, symbolizing a return to the city where it all began. It would have classrooms, service simulation, labs, a specialized library, and lodging for students from other states and countries. Mr. Wilson, said Dr. William when presenting the school's legal plan, this will require a significant investment. How much? About $15 million. I have the money. The issue isn't financial. What is the issue? The issue is whether we can truly train people capable of spreading our philosophy while keeping its essence intact. And do you think you can? I think we have to try. If we can train 100 quality instructors per year, in 10 years we'll have 1,000 people spreading our message worldwide. Construction of the School of Dignified Service began 6 months later. Robert insisted on overseeing every stage personally, from the foundation to the finishing touches. I want this place to inspire respect, he told the architect. Not extravagance, but respect. Anyone who walks in should feel welcome. The architectural design reflected this philosophy. The campus was elegant yet accessible, modern yet welcoming. There were ramps and elevators for those with limited mobility, braille signage and spaces adapted for different needs. A year and a half later, the School of Dignified Service opened with a ceremony attended by business leaders, educators, and officials from across the country. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert said in his inauguration speech, this school is not just a place of learning. It's a symbol that we believe in humanity's capacity for change. So here, we will train people who will go to their companies not just with service techniques, but with the conviction that every person deserves to be treated with dignity. This school is my way of ensuring the lesson I learned 12 years ago isn't lost, that it keeps multiplying, transforming businesses and lives. The first class of the school consisted of 50 students from different states and countries, business owners, managers, supervisors, and salespeople who had decided to specialize in respectful service. Michael took over as the school's academic director. Jennifer led the Department of Practices, and Tyler was responsible for expansion and partnerships. Everyone, Michael said during the inaugural class, you're not just here to learn techniques, you're here to become agents of transformation. What does that mean? Asked one student. It means when you return to your companies, you won't just change how you serve customers, you'll change the entire organization's culture. And how do we do that? Through example, persistence, and the conviction that it's possible to do business successfully while treating everyone with respect. The school's course lasted 3 months and included not only service techniques but also human psychology, conflict management, effective communication, and transformational leadership. Students participated in realistic simulations, studied practical cases and interned at companies that had already implemented the philosophy of dignified service. "Professor Michael," one student asked during a practical lesson, "what if our co-workers resist the changes we want to implement?" Good question. Resistance always exists, but you'll have one advantage: concrete results to show. How so? When your colleagues see that treating customers well leads to more sales, fewer complaints, and a better work environment, resistance naturally fades. And what if some still resist? That's where persistence comes in. Cultural. Change takes time. You can't give up at the first challenge. The first graduating class achieved exceptional results. Within 6 months, the 50 graduates had implemented significant changes in their respective companies. One alumna working at a pharmacy chain reduced service complaints by 80%. Another transformed a department store known for rudeness into a benchmark for courteous service. Success stories like these drew even more interest in the school. Subsequent classes had waiting lists, with applicants from various countries eager to participate. 15 years after that initial humiliation, Robert Wilson had created a legacy that surpassed any dream he might have had. His dealerships continued to thrive, serving thousands of customers each year with respect and dignity. His institute had trained over 20,000 employees across dozens of countries. His school was graduating hundreds of multipliers annually, spreading the philosophy of dignified service worldwide. But what made Robert most proud were the personal stories of transformation. Like Michael's, who had become one of the nation's top customer service experts, renowned for turning discriminatory teams into models of respect. Like Jennifer's, who had developed her own methodology for serving people with disabilities and was invited to speak at national and international conferences. Like Tyler's, who had created specialized programs to train young salespeople not to discriminate against customers based on age. And like the hundreds of school alumni transforming businesses in their home countries. "Mr. Wilson," a journalist asked in an interview marking the 15-year milestone, "what is your greatest pride?" "My greatest pride is knowing that there are thousands of people treating others better because of the work we've done." "And what is your greatest lesson?" "That a negative experience can be transformed into the most powerful positive force in your life, if you choose to use that experience to help others." "Do you regret anything in these 15 years?" "I only regret not starting sooner." "Why?" "Because I imagine how many people could have been spared humiliation if I had begun this work earlier. But you only started because you were humiliated. If you hadn't gone through that..." "You're right. Perhaps that humiliation was necessary to awaken me to this mission." "So you're grateful for being mistreated?" Robert reflected for a few seconds before answering. "I'm grateful for the consequences of it. I'm grateful for discovering my life's purpose. But I would never be grateful for the humiliation itself, because I know how terrible it is to endure." "And what are your plans for the future?" "To keep growing. We want to reach 100 countries in the next 10 years. We want to train 10,000 multipliers each year. We want respecting customers to be the global norm, not the exception." The interview was published in several magazines and newspapers, inspiring more business owners to seek the services of the school and the institute. Among those who reached out to Robert after the interview was a businessman who brought him a surprising proposal. "Mr. Wilson, I represent a group of international investors interested in bringing your methodology to every continent." "What kind of proposal?" "We want to create schools like yours in 50 countries, an initial investment of $200 million. "And what would my role be?" "Master consultant and global supervisor of training quality." "Interesting. But I have one non-negotiable condition." "What is it?" "The philosophy cannot be altered to adapt to different markets. Respect is universal and admits no exceptions." "We understand. That's exactly why we came to you." "I'll discuss it with my team and give you an answer." That evening, Robert gathered Michael, Jennifer, and Tyler to discuss the proposal. "Everyone, we have the opportunity to truly globalize our work, but it means giving up direct control over operations." "Mr. Wilson," said Michael, "what's your main concern?" "My concern is that our philosophy could be distorted or commercialized in a way that loses its essence." "And how can we prevent that?" asked Jennifer. By creating strict quality protocols and personally overseeing the first implementations on each continent. That would mean much more work for all of us, noted Tyler. Yes, are you all willing? Mr. Wilson, said Michael, I've worked with you for 15 years. I've seen the impact our work has on people's lives. If we have the chance to multiply that globally, we can't waste it. Jennifer and Tyler unanimously agreed. Then we'll accept, Robert decided. But we'll do it our way, maintaining our quality and our values. The global expansion began with pilot projects on 5 continents. Robert and his team traveled personally to oversee implementation in the United States, France, Japan, South Africa, and Australia. Each country presented unique challenges. In the US, they had to adapt the methodology for a more litigious culture. In France, there was initial resistance to the concept of equality in service. In Japan, courtesy already existed, but inclusion for foreigners was lacking. It's fascinating, Robert remarked to Michael during a trip, how prejudices vary from country to country, but the need for respect is always the same. And the reception. Surprising. Everywhere we go, we meet people who face discrimination and are excited by our mission. This confirms we're on the right path. 20 years after that initial humiliation, Robert Wilson had become a globally recognized figure in customer service and organizational transformation. His schools operated in 30 countries. His institutes had trained over 100,000 employees. Millions of customers worldwide had better experiences because companies had adopted his philosophy. But at 85, Robert began thinking about the future of his legacy. Michael, he said in a private conversation, I need to start planning my succession. Mr. Wilson, you still have many years ahead of you. Perhaps, but I want to ensure our work continues even when I'm no longer here. What do you have in mind? I want to create a foundation that will forever be responsible for keeping our philosophy alive and constantly expanding. A foundation? Yes. With enough resources to keep operating indefinitely, training new generations of multipliers, and supporting businesses that want to implement dignified service. The Dignified Service Foundation was established with an initial endowment of 50 million raise, sourced from the profits of the dealerships and the school. Michael was appointed president of the foundation. Jennifer took over as executive director. Tyler became responsible for international expansion. Everyone, Robert said at the board induction meeting, you are now the guardians of a mission that goes far beyond our business. What mission is that? Jennifer asked. The mission to ensure no person is humiliated for their appearance when seeking a service or product. That's a big mission, Tyler observed. It's an impossible one to fully complete, Robert admitted. But every person's spared discrimination justifies all our efforts. What if we face resistance or difficulties? Michael asked. Always remember why we started this. Remember how you felt when you discovered it was possible to do business while treating all people with dignity. The foundation quickly became a global reference for organizational transformation based on respect. Universities sought partnerships for academic research. Governments requested consulting to improve public service. Companies across all sectors implemented methodologies developed by the foundation, reporting not just improved business results, but also better workplace environments and employee satisfaction. Robert watched it all with growing satisfaction and a sense of duty fulfilled. Dr. Patterson, he said in one of their last business meetings, we did it. Did what? Dad turned a personal humiliation into a global force for positive change. And how do you feel about that? I feel my life had purpose, that I used my negative experience to spare others from the same. Any regrets? None. Every decision I made, every investment, every hour I dedicated to this work was worth it. Even the hardships, especially the hardships. They taught me that real change requires persistence and conviction. 25 years after that humiliation at a Tampa dealership, Robert Wilson passed away peacefully at home at 90, surrounded by Michael, Jennifer, Tyler, and their families. His funeral was one of the largest ever seen in the city. Thousands attended, current and former employees, customers who had been well served over the years, alumni from the schools, business owners who had transformed their companies based on his teachings. In the front row were those Robert considered his true family. Michael, now 65, Jennifer at 62, and Tyler at 55. They had all dedicated their lives to continuing the work Robert began. He died knowing his mission was in good hands, said Michael to Jennifer, as they watched the steady stream of people paying their respects. Michael, do you remember what he always used to say? Jennifer asked, her eyes glistening. Every person spared from humiliation justifies all our efforts. Exactly. And look how many people are here today, thanking him for treating them with dignity. Tyler approached the two, carrying a stack of cards and letters. Guys, condolence messages are pouring in from all over the world. Former students from the school, business owners who implemented our methodology, people who were treated well, in companies we trained. How many? Michael asked. Over 5,000 so far, and they're still coming. One letter in particular caught Jennifer's attention. It was from a 25-year-old woman named Carla, who had been discriminated against in a clothing store 5 years earlier. Mr. Robert, you never knew this, but your methodology saved my self-esteem. After being humiliated in a store because of my weight, I thought about never leaving the house again. But 3 months later, I returned to the same store and was treated kindly by a saleswoman who had attended your training. That experience restored my confidence. Today, I'm a store manager, and I treat every customer the way I'd want to be treated. Jennifer showed the letter to Michael and Tyler. Look at this. Robert touched this young woman's life without even knowing it. There must be hundreds of stories like this, said Tyler. Thousands, Michael corrected. That's why our work can't stop. The burial took place at Bayview Memorial Gardens in Tampa, in a simple but moving ceremony. Michael was chosen to deliver the farewell speech. Robert Wilson wasn't just our boss or our mentor, Michael began, his voice trembling. He was the man who taught us that successful business and human dignity don't just coexist, they amplify each other. 25 years ago, Robert walked into a car dealership wanting to buy a car and left with a life mission. He taught us that painful experiences can be turned into forces for positive change. But the most important lesson Robert taught us was that transforming people is more valuable than any financial profit, because transformed people transform others, creating waves of change that spread forever. Today, we bury Robert's body, but his soul lives on in every employee who learned to treat customers with respect, in every customer who felt dignified walking into a store, in every child who learns early that all people deserve consideration. Robert, thank you for teaching us that the greatest revenge against humiliation is to multiply dignity. After the burial, Michael, Jennifer, and Tyler gathered at Robert's apartment to discuss the future of the foundation and the businesses. First, we need to honor his will, said William, who remained the family's lawyer. Robert had left his shares in the dealerships equally divided among Michael, Jennifer, and Tyler. The school and foundation were placed under their collective management, with enough resources to operate indefinitely. But he left a specific letter for you, William said, handing them a sealed envelope. Michael opened the letter and read aloud. My dear Michael, Jennifer, and Tyler, if you're reading this, my journey has come to an end, but your mission is just beginning. For 25 years, we worked together to prove that business can be done while treating people with dignity. We succeeded, but there's still so much work left. Michael, you transformed from someone who discriminated into a multiplier of respect. Your story is living proof that people can change. Use that experience to keep transforming others. Jennifer, your dedication and kindness toward all our clients have inspired me every day. You have a gift for making people feel special. Keep using that gift. Tyler, your growth has been extraordinary, from an uncertain salesperson to a confident leader. Your youth and energy are essential for carrying our message to new generations. I leave you with 3 challenges. First, always maintain the essence of our work. Don't let it be distorted or commercialized in a way that loses focus on human respect. Second, keep expanding but with quality. It's better to train 100 people well than 1,000 poorly. Third, prepare successors. You won't always be here, Find young people with potential and teach them not just the techniques, but above all, the philosophy. Remember, our greatest victory isn't profits or awards. It's every person who stops being humiliated. It's every employee who learns to respect customers. It's every child who grows up believing all people deserve dignity. I'm counting on you to keep the flame we lit together alive, with eternal love and gratitude, Robert. The three of them sat in silence for several minutes after reading. Well, Michael finally said, we have work to do. A lot of work, Jennifer agreed. And a huge responsibility, Tyler added. But we also have 25 years of experience and proven results, Michael reminded them. Robert prepared us well for this moment. In the following weeks, the three dedicated themselves to reorganizing operations to function without Robert. They discovered he had been extremely careful in succession planning. Every process was documented, every employee knew their exact responsibilities, and the organizational culture was so deeply rooted that operations continued smoothly. Robert really thought of everything, Jennifer remarked during an evaluation meeting. He was always visionary, Tyler agreed, but now it's up to us to prove we learned his lessons well. The first major challenge came 3 months after Robert's death. A national department store chain requested training for 1,000 employees across 10 cities. This is exactly the kind of project Robert would have loved, Michael said, but it's also the kind he'd insist on overseeing personally. Do we have the capacity for this? Jennifer asked. Technically, yes. The question is whether we can maintain quality on such a large scale. Tyler proposed a solution. What if we break the project into phases? First, we train the supervisors and managers. They become internal multipliers. Then we do the general training. Good idea, Michael approved. Robert always said sustainable change comes from the top down. The project was accepted and executed exactly as Tyler had suggested. Within 6 months, the store chain had completely transformed its service culture. The results were impressive: a 60% increase in sales, an 80% reduction in complaints, and 95% customer approval in satisfaction surveys. We did it, Jennifer said when they received the final report. We handled a project on Robert's scale while maintaining the quality he'd demand. And we proved we can go on without him, Tyler added. Not without him, Michael corrected, with him. Robert is in every decision we make, every principle we apply, every person we train. 2 years after Robert's death, the foundation faced a proposal that deeply tested its values. A corporate group offered $15 million to buy exclusive rights to Robert's methodology, aiming to create a global training franchise. That's a lot of money, Jennifer admitted during the decision meeting. And it would spread our methodology very quickly, Tyler noted. But would it still be our methodology? Questioned Michael. Or would it be a commercialized version? That loses its essence? What do you think Robert would say? Asked Jennifer. Michael didn't hesitate. Robert would refuse immediately. He always said respect isn't a product to be sold like a franchise. But what if we could maintain quality control? Insisted Tyler. Tyler, did you read the proposal carefully? They want to train instructors in 15 days and charge half our price. How can we maintain quality like that? You're right, it's impossible. So we're all agreed on refusing? Asked Jennifer. Everyone unanimously agreed. Turning down the franchise proposal ended up being one of the best decisions they made. 6 months later, they discovered the same company had tried to implement similar methodologies in other countries, with disastrous results that led to multiple discrimination lawsuits. Imagine if our name had been tied to that, Michael said with relief. Robert must be proud of us up there, Jennifer joked. But not everything was a success. In the 3rd year after Robert's death, the foundation faced its first major failure. They had been hired to transform service at a network of medical clinics known for discriminating against low-income patients. The project seemed ideal: high social impact, strong visibility, and enough resources to properly train the entire team. But from the start, there was resistance from the network's leadership. Doctors, Michael said in a meeting with the medical directors, our goal is to ensure every patient is treated with equal respect and attention. Mr. Cooper, with all due respect, but medicine isn't car sales, replied one of the directors, Dr. Edward Thompson. "We have to prioritize urgent cases." "We understand that, Doctor, but prioritizing by medical urgency is different from discriminating by social class." "Who said we discriminate by social class?" Jennifer intervened, presenting data they had collected. "Doctor, our observers noted that well-dressed patients wait an average of 20 minutes to be seen, while patients in simple clothes wait 2 hours, even with similar issues." "Those are coincidences. Doctor, we recorded 47 cases in 2 weeks. Hardly a coincidence." The doctor's resistance grew when Tyler presented examples of unequal treatment. Patients arriving in private cars receive detailed explanations about their treatments. Patients arriving by bus get quick prescriptions with little clarification. Dr. Edward grew irritated. "You've been here 2 weeks and think you understand how a medical environment works." "We don't claim to understand medicine," Michael replied calmly. "But we do understand human dignity. And you think we don't respect our patients?" "We think you respect some patients more than others." The tension in the room was palpable. Other doctors began speaking up, some supporting Dr. Edward, others acknowledging problems in their service. Dr. Sarah Johnson, one of the youngest doctors on staff, surprised everyone by siding with the consultants. "Colleagues, I've worked here 5 years and they're right. I've seen poor patients treated with contempt by reception and some doctors." "Dr. Sarah, that's a serious accusation," said Dr. Edward. "It's a painful truth, Doctor." "Edward, and if we want to be true professionals, we must acknowledge our mistakes." The divide among the doctors deepened in the following weeks. Some embraced the training and significantly changed how they treated patients. Others, systematically, sabotaged any attempt at change. "Michael, we've never faced such strong resistance," Jennifer said after a month of work. "It's different from commercial businesses," Tyler agreed. "There are issues of professional ego involved here. Maybe we should give up," suggested Jennifer. "Robert always said you can't force change on those who don't want to change." "But what about the patients who will continue to be mistreated?" questioned Michael. "And doctors like Dr. Sarah, who want to change but face pressure from their colleagues," added Tyler. They decided to press on, focusing on the professionals who showed genuine interest in improving. But the situation exploded when Dr. Edward discovered that Dr. Sarah was voluntarily implementing the respectful care protocols they had taught. "Dr. Sarah, you're going against the medical board's directives," he said in a tense meeting. "Dr. Edward, I'm treating my patients with more attention and kindness. I don't see a problem with that." "The problem is you're following external protocols without authorization." "The protocols I'm following are basic medical ethics, treating all patients with equal respect." "Are you questioning your colleagues' ethics?" "I'm questioning practices I find inadequate." The argument escalated quickly, drawing in other doctors and reaching the ears of the hospital network's administration. A week later, Dr. Sarah was fired for not aligning with the institution's organizational culture. "This is unacceptable," said Michael when he heard about the dismissal. "Firing a doctor for treating patients with respect. It's the exact opposite of everything Robert stood for," agreed Jennifer. "We have to do something," insisted Tyler. But when they tried to intervene, they discovered Dr. Edward had convinced the network's board to cancel their foundation's contract. "Gentlemen consultants, we appreciate your services, but we've decided our institution doesn't need changes in patient care," said the administrative director in a cold, formal meeting. "Sir, but the results were positive," argued Michael. "Patients treated by professionals who embraced our methodology were far more satisfied. We've decided satisfaction isn't our top priority. Medical efficiency is." Jennifer made one last appeal. "Sir, patient satisfaction and medical efficiency aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, satisfied patients cooperate more with treatment, follow prescriptions better, and create fewer administrative problems. Our decision is final." They were expelled from the clinic, just as Robert had been thrown out of that dealership 25 years earlier. "What irony," Tyler remarked as they walked down the sidewalk with their folders and materials. "Robert always said not every battle can be won," Michael recalled. "The important thing is not to give up the war." "But what about Dr. Sarah?" Jennifer asked. "She lost her job for trying to do the right thing." "Let's find her," Michael decided. Maybe we can help her somehow. They found Dr. Sarah at a coffee shop near the hospital, visibly shaken by her dismissal. "Doctor, we're so sorry for what happened," said Michael. "Thank you, but I don't regret it. I learned from you that some things are more important than keeping a job. So what are your plans now?" "I don't know. Maybe look for work at another hospital, maybe open my own practice." Jennifer had an idea. "Doctor, what if we offered a partnership?" "What kind of partnership?" "The foundation could fund the opening of your practice, and you could be our first partner clinic, proving it's possible to practice medicine with both technical excellence and human respect." Dr. Sarah thought for a few seconds. "Would it be a low-cost clinic?" "It would be a clinic that treats all patients with the same quality," Tyler corrected. "I'm interested. But how would it work financially?" "The foundation would cover the initial costs. You'd pay it back as the practice became established, and we'd document the entire experience to show that respectful medicine is viable and profitable. And I'd have complete freedom to treat patients the way I believe is right." "Absolutely. In fact, we hope you'll develop protocols we can teach other doctors." Dr. Sarah accepted the proposal, and 6 months later, she opened Dignity Medical Practice in downtown Tampa. The practice was an immediate success. Dr. Sarah treated patients from all social classes with the same care and attention. Her waiting room had no segregated areas. Everyone received detailed explanations about their health issues. "Doctor, how do you manage to maintain the same quality for all your patients?" Jennifer asked during a follow-up visit. "It's simple. I dedicate 30 minutes to each appointment, no matter what the patient is paying. I explain everything in words they understand. I treat each one the way I'd want my own family treated." "And that doesn't reduce your productivity?" "On the contrary, well-treated patients follow their treatments better, need fewer follow-up visits, and refer others to the practice." The success of Dr. Sarah's practice caught the attention of other doctors in the area. Many reached out to the foundation, interested in learning how to implement respectful care in their own clinics. "Look at this," Michael said during an evaluation meeting. "Our failure with the clinic network ended up creating something better." "How so?" Tyler asked. "If we had managed to superficially train hundreds of resistant doctors, we might never have identified an exceptional physician like Dr. Sarah. And now she's training other doctors who truly embrace our philosophy," Jennifer added. 5 years after Robert's death, the foundation had found its ideal rhythm: controlled growth, guaranteed quality, and real impact on people's lives. Michael had become a recognized speaker, sharing his story of personal transformation to inspire other professionals. Jennifer developed a specific methodology for training care for the elderly and people with disabilities, sought after by companies across the country. Tyler took over the school, implementing new courses and training a new generation of instructors. But it was during a seemingly ordinary moment that they realized the true reach of Robert's legacy. One Saturday afternoon, Michael was shopping at a supermarket when he witnessed a familiar scene: a young cashier mistreating an elderly woman who was taking too long to count her money. "Couldn't you have counted this at home?" the young man said rudely. "I'm sorry, dear, but I'm having trouble seeing the bills," the woman replied, clearly embarrassed. Michael stepped forward to intervene, but was surprised by another customer's reaction. "Son, it's not her fault she's struggling. How about you help her instead of complaining?" said a man in his 40s. "Sir, I'm just doing my job." The cashier replied defensively. "Your job is to serve customers politely. If you can't do that, maybe you should find another job." Other customers in line began supporting the man who had defended the woman. The cashier, embarrassed, completely changed his attitude. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Let me help you count the money." Michael watched the scene with a smile. After the woman finished her shopping, he approached the man who had intervened. "Sir, I applaud your attitude. We don't see that often." "Ah, thank you. But I've learned that when you see someone being mistreated and do nothing, you become complicit." "Where did you learn that?" "At a company I worked for a few years ago. The manager always said that respecting people is everyone's responsibility, not just those being paid to serve." "What company?" "A dealership here in Tampa. The owner was a man named Robert Wilson. an incredible man. Michael felt a shiver down his spine. I knew Robert Wilson. Really? Then you know what a special person he was. I do. In fact, I'm working to continue his legacy. How so? Michael briefly explained the foundation and the work they did. What an amazing coincidence, the man said. By the way, my name is Brandon Williams. I worked 5 years at Mr. Wilson's dealership. Brandon, Michael exclaimed. I'm Michael Cooper, the former store manager. Michael? The same Michael who became a service expert. Man, everyone at the dealership looked up to. You? The two talked for nearly an hour in the supermarket parking lot. Brandon shared how Robert's teachings had influenced his entire life afterward. Michael, after I left the dealership, I worked at 3 more companies. At each one, I tried to implement what I learned from Robert. I treated customers and co-workers with respect, challenged discriminatory practices, and taught younger colleagues about human dignity. How was it received? Not always well. At one company, I was even called too politically correct, but I always proved that treating people well delivers better results. And now? Now I own my own hardware store. And guess what our philosophy is? Michael smiled, imagining the answer. Treat every customer with equal respect? Exactly. And know our slogan? Here, every customer is special. Robert would be proud. I wonder how many people like me are out there, applying his teachings without you even knowing. This conversation inspired Michael to create a new project, a survey to find former employees of companies trained by the foundation and document how they had applied what they learned in their later lives. Jennifer, Tyler, I want to propose something, Michael said at the next meeting. What? A project to document our real impact. How many people have we trained directly? Where are they working now? How are they applying what they learned? Like a long-term follow-up, Jennifer asked. Exactly. Robert always worried whether our changes were lasting. This would be a way to measure that. Tyler loved the idea. We could create an alumni network, gather success stories, identify people who became natural multipliers, and also see where our methods didn't work, to understand why, Jennifer added. The Legacy Project, as it was named, took 2 years to complete and revealed surprising results. Of the over 15,000 people directly trained by the foundation, they managed to contact about 8,000. Of those, 85% reported still applying the principles they'd learned in their current jobs. Even more impressive, 60% had informally trained co-workers or subordinates in the same principles, multiplying the impact exponentially. They uncovered incredible stories. Mary Johnson, a former receptionist at a dealership, had become a customer service supervisor at a telecom company and implemented respect protocols that reduced complaints by 70%. John Paul, a former furniture salesman, opened a small home services business where all employees were trained to treat elderly clients with special care. Anna Claire, a former bank teller, had created a private course to teach retail workers about inclusive service for people with disabilities. It's amazing, Jennifer said while reviewing the reports. Robert planted seeds that are still sprouting years later. And the most beautiful part is that many of these people don't even consider themselves his disciples, observed Tyler. For them, treating people with respect is just the natural way to work. Which is exactly what Robert wanted, Michael reminded. He always said our goal was to make respect so normal that people wouldn't even notice it was different. The results of the Legacy Project motivated the foundation to launch a new initiative, the Network of Multipliers. The idea is simple, Michael explained during a presentation to local business owners. We'll connect people who already apply our principles naturally, offering support so they can become trainers in their own regions. How would that work? Asked one business owner. We identify professionals who stand out for treating people with respect, provide additional training to turn them into instructors, and support them in creating regional hubs for our methodology. And what's the benefit for them? Official certification, access to updated teaching materials, and participation in a national network of professionals who share the same values. The network of multipliers grew quickly. Within 3 years, There were hubs in 15 states, all led by former students who had distinguished themselves through their dedication to the principles of dignified service. Each hub developed initiatives suited to their local realities, while always preserving the essence of Robert's teachings. In the Atlanta hub, for example, the focus was combating racial discrimination in customer service. In the Pennsylvania hub, the priority was inclusive service for people with disabilities. "This is exactly what Robert dreamed of," Jennifer said during an evaluation meeting, "a self-managed network of people spreading respect. And one that doesn't depend on us to function," Tyler added. "Each hub has full autonomy as long as they uphold the core principles." But it was in 2018, 10 years after Robert's passing, that the most moving event for the foundation took place. The city of Tampa decided to establish the Municipal Day of Dignified Service in honor of Robert Wilson and the impact of his work on the city. "Mr. Cooper, Ms. Jennifer, Mr. Tyler," the mayor said during the launch ceremony, "Tampa has become a national benchmark for quality public service thanks to the work started by Mr. Robert Wilson. Tourists who visit our city always remark on the politeness and courtesy they encounter in our businesses. This creates a positive image that benefits our entire economy. That's why we've decided that every August 15th will be the Municipal Day of Dignified Service, the birthday of Mr. Robert." The ceremony was held at the original dealership, which had become a historic landmark for the city. The building now housed a museum about the history of the dignified service movement while still functioning as a dealership. "Robert would be overjoyed," Jennifer whispered to Michael as they watched hundreds of people touring the museum. "Especially seeing it become something even bigger than he imagined," Michael replied, "and that it keeps growing without needing us to control it." During the museum visit, one plaque caught the attention of many visitors. It displayed the reproduction of the first words Robert had spoken when he took over the dealership. "From this day forward, this company will treat every customer with the same respect and attention, regardless of how they're dressed, what car they drive, or how they look." Beneath the plaque was a comment from Michael. "This sentence changed my life. It taught me that respecting people isn't a favor, it's an obligation, that judging by appearance is ignorance. That turning humiliation into opportunity is the greatest form of revenge." "Michael," said a visitor reading the plaque, "are you the same Michael mentioned here?" "Yes, Mom." "Wow, what an incredible story. Have you really changed that much?" Michael smiled, remembering the man he had been 15 years earlier. "Ma'am, 15 years ago I used to turn people away from this dealership because of the clothes they wore. Today I dedicate my life to teaching others not to make the same mistake." And what made the difference? A man who chose to respond to disrespect with transformation rather than more disrespect. And does that work? "You're seeing the results," Michael said, gesturing toward the bustling museum and the dealership. 15 years later, hundreds of thousands of people have been positively impacted. The conversation was interrupted by Tyler, who approached carrying a letter. "Michael, Jennifer, a very special letter just arrived." "From whom?" "From an elementary school in Tampa. The children wrote a collective letter thanking us for teaching them about respect." Michael read the letter aloud. "Dear Mr. Michael, Mrs. Jennifer, Mr. Tyler, we are the 4th grade students at Robert Wilson Elementary School. Our school is named after the man you worked with. Our teacher told us his story and yours. We think it's really cool that bad people can become good when they learn. We want to say that we already treat everyone well at school, no matter if they're rich or poor, pretty or plain, smart or struggling. Our teacher said if everyone were like you, the world would be better. Thank you for teaching grown-ups to be kind. Sincerely, the 4th grade class." The 3 of them were moved by the children's letter. "Just look," Jennifer said. "We've reached the children. Robert always said transforming the next generation was our ultimate goal. And we did it," Tyler added. "These kids are learning early that respecting people is normal." "Michael, remember when Robert said our greatest victory would be when treating customers with respect became so natural that people wouldn't even notice it was different?" Jennifer asked. "I remember perfectly, and I think we've made it." At that moment, they realized they had fulfilled the mission Robert left them. Respectful service had become part of Tampa's culture. Children grew up believing that treating people with dignity was normal. Business owners competed to provide the best service. Discrimination, though not completely eliminated, had drastically decreased, but challenges still lay ahead. In 2019, the foundation received its first international request for help, one that would test all their values. A humanitarian organization from Honduras had asked for training to teach volunteers how to serve refugees with dignity, regardless of their socioeconomic or legal status. "This is a delicate situation," Michael said during a decision-making meeting. "It's not a typical commercial business. But it's exactly the kind of situation where our methodology can make the biggest difference," Jennifer argued. "And it would be a way to honor Robert's memory by helping people in vulnerable positions," Tyler added. After much debate, they accepted the challenge. Michael traveled to Tegucigalpa with a team of instructors to develop an adapted version of their training. "The situation here is unlike anything we've faced before," Michael reported over the phone after the first week. "We're not dealing with commercial biases, but humanitarian ones." "How so?" Jennifer asked. "Some volunteers treat refugees as poor souls who should be grateful for any help. Others see them as opportunists lying about their needs. And both attitudes are disrespectful," Tyler observed. "Exactly. We're teaching them that refugees are ordinary people facing extraordinary circumstances. They deserve dignity, not pity or suspicion." The work in Honduras was challenging but incredibly rewarding. In 3 months, the trained volunteers had completely transformed the refugee experience at the shelters. "Michael, how do you feel about this project?" Jennifer asked when he returned. "I feel like we've finally grasped the true scope of Robert's vision. It's not just about customer service, it's about human dignity in any situation. And now I know our methodology can be applied in any context where people interact with people." This success in Honduras has opened doors for other humanitarian projects. The foundation began training teams at public hospitals, social assistance workers, and even police officers in respectful approaches. Each new context required adaptations, but the core principles remained the same. Every person deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of circumstances. In 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic brought new challenges for the foundation. With businesses closing and the economic crisis, many trained clients cancelled contracts or requested postponements. "We're in a tough spot," Tyler admitted during an emergency meeting. "We've lost 60% of our revenue in 3 months. And costs remain high because we've kept all our employees," Jennifer added. "Robert would have done the same," Michael said. "He'd never lay people off in a crisis. But how will we survive financially? By adapting our work to the new reality." Michael proposed shifting in-person training to online formats, cutting operational costs, and creating new products suited to the moment. "Think about it," he said. "With social isolation, people are more sensitive to how they're treated. Respectful service over the phone or video calls makes an even bigger difference. And we have a unique opportunity to train people working from home," Jennifer noted. "Exactly. We can reach employees across the country without travel costs." The transition to digital was challenging, but also brought unexpected opportunities. Online training attracted participants from regions they'd never reached in person. "It's incredible," Tyler said after the first month of digital operations. "We're serving people from Alaska, Montana, the Midwest. And discovering our principles work just as well anywhere in the country," Jennifer added. "Robert would be proud to see how we've adapted without losing our essence," Michael said. During the pandemic, they also developed specific protocols for respectful service in times of crisis, how to treat clients facing financial hardship, how to maintain empathy when the company itself is struggling, how to be respectful while following health safety protocols. "Crisis reveals the true character of people and businesses," Jennifer said in an online talk. "It's easy to be respectful when things are going well. The challenge is keeping respect when times are hard. And that's exactly when respect makes the biggest difference in people's lives," Michael added. One case that deeply moved the team during the pandemic was a small neighborhood store in Tampa. Mrs. Margaret, the owner of a local market, had attended one of the foundation's online trainings. When the crisis worsened and many customers lost their jobs, she implemented a surprising policy. "Michael, I want to tell you what I'm doing," she said in an emotional call. "Go ahead, Mrs. Margaret. I'm letting customers who lost their jobs pay for groceries with work." "How so?" "Those without money can work a few hours in the store, helping with cleaning, organizing, or customer service. In exchange, they take food home. And how's it working? Better than I imagined. People feel useful instead of humiliated. And I get extra help exactly when I need it most. Mrs. Margaret, this is brilliant. You've created a way to help while preserving people's dignity. I learned that in your training. You always say what matters is making people feel respected." Mrs. Margaret's story quickly spread across social media and inspired other small business owners to create similar solutions. "Just look at this," said Jennifer when she heard about the impact. "One of our students came up with something we hadn't even thought of. It proves our methodology really teaches people to think, not just follow rules," observed Tyler. "And that students can surpass their teachers," added Michael with pride. In 2021, as the pandemic eased, the foundation faced a crucial decision about its future. Several tech companies had offered partnerships to create apps and digital platforms based on Robert's methodology. "It's a chance to reach millions," argued Tyler. "Imagine an app that teaches respectful service to anyone, anywhere in the world." "But can an app really teach empathy and respect?" questioned Jennifer. "Our work has always been based on human connection. And there's a risk of diluting our methodology," added Michael, "turning it into just another digital product." After much debate, they decided to run a limited pilot project. They would create an educational app while maintaining a focus on quality content and real human interaction. The Dignity and Service app launched in 2022 with carefully designed features. It wasn't just a collection of tips, but a platform connecting people eager to improve their service skills. Users could watch videos of real-life cases, join discussions moderated by foundation instructors, and even schedule one-on-one coaching sessions. "The important thing is, we kept the human essence," Jennifer said after the first few months. "Technology is making access easier, but the heart of the work remains the connection between people." The app was a moderate success, attracting around 50,000 users in its first year. More important than the numbers was the quality of engagement. Users reported real changes in their attitudes and professional practices. In 2023, 15 years after Robert's passing, the foundation received its most honorable invitation yet. The United Nations had requested their expertise to develop dignified service protocols for refugee camps worldwide. "This is the ultimate recognition of Robert's work," Michael said when they received the invitation, "and the chance to bring our methodology to the most challenging context possible," added Jennifer. "But also the greatest responsibility we've ever had," Tyler noted. Despite Robert's long-standing reservations about excessive international expansion, they decided to accept this specific project due to its humanitarian nature. "Robert always put human dignity above profits," Michael said in the decision meeting. "I think he'd approve of helping people in extreme vulnerability." The UN project lasted 2 years and sent team members to refugee camps in Jordan, Uganda, and Colombia. "It's unlike anything we've done before," Jennifer reported after her first trip. "Here, the difference between respectful and disrespectful service can mean preserving or destroying the dignity of people who've already lost nearly everything." "And how are the camp staff responding?" "Surprisingly well. Many were already working with CARE but lacked systematic methods. We're organizing and amplifying the good practices that were already there." The work in refugee camps brought valuable lessons that were later applied in other contexts. How to maintain professionalism without losing empathy in extreme situations. How to treat desperate people with dignity. How to preserve humanity when resources are limited. "We discovered that our basic principles apply in any situation," said Tyler at a conference about the project. "Regardless of the context, people need to feel seen, heard, and respected. And that small gestures of respect have a huge impact when people are vulnerable," added Michael. In 2024, the foundation marked 16 years without Robert, but His legacy was more alive than ever. Michael, now 70, began thinking about his own succession. Jennifer, at 67, remained active, but also planned to gradually reduce her activities. Tyler, at 60, was at the peak of his productivity. "We need to start thinking about the next generation," said Michael at a strategic planning meeting. "How about we begin identifying young professionals with leadership potential," suggested Jennifer, "and create a formal succession program just as Robert did with us," added Tyler. They launched the Young Leaders Program, selecting 10 professionals under 35 each year for an intensive 2-year training. The candidates came from diverse backgrounds: outstanding alumni from the school, employees of companies that successfully implemented the methodology, professionals from NGOs and public agencies who demonstrated commitment to human dignity. The idea is to raise a new generation that carries our values, but also brings fresh perspectives, Tyler explained to the program's first participants. "You'll learn our methodology, but we expect you to evolve it according to the challenges of your time," Jennifer added. Among the first young leaders was Rachel Adams, a 28-year-old social worker who had implemented dignified service protocols in shelters for the homeless. "Rachel, what motivated you to apply for the program?" Michael asked during an interview. "I grew up watching my grandmother be mistreated in stores and hospitals for being poor and black. When I learned about your work, I realized there was a way to systematically fight this. And what's your vision for the future of our work?" "I think we need to address racial, gender, and socio-economic prejudice more directly. The world has changed a lot since Robert started this work." "You're right. How can we do that?" "By explicitly including these discussions in our trainings, forming instructors from diverse backgrounds, and creating specific protocols for different types of discrimination." Rachel's ideas, along with those of other young leaders, revitalized the foundation's work. They began addressing issues that, though always present, had not been systematically tackled. How to train staff not to discriminate against LGBTQ+ individuals. How to ensure respectful service for people of different religions. How to combat prejudice based on physical appearance, age, or disability. Robert always focused on the universal principle of respect, Michael said at an evaluation meeting. But these young leaders are helping us apply that principle more specifically and effectively. "And they're bringing new energy to our work," Jennifer observed. In 2025, the foundation faced its biggest challenge since Robert's death. A major retail chain, a client for over 10 years, was caught discriminating against transgender customers, despite having undergone multiple trainings. The case gained national attention and raised doubts about the foundation's methodology. "This is a blow to our credibility," Tyler said at an emergency meeting. "And an opportunity to show how we react when our methods fail," replied Michael. "How so?" "Robert always said that making mistakes is part of the process. What matters is how you respond to them." Instead of defending themselves or blaming the client company, they made a courageous decision. They conducted a full audit of all their training methods to identify where they had failed. "We discovered that our trainings addressed discrimination in a generic way," reported Rachel, who led the audit. "We talk about treating everyone with respect, but we don't specify the actual situations that lead to prejudice." "And the solution?" "To completely overhaul our modules, including specific scenarios, targeted role plays, and open discussions about the biases people actually hold." "Won't that create resistance from clients?" "It might. But it's better to face resistance and create real change than to avoid discomfort and allow discrimination to continue." The methodology overhaul took 6 months and involved the entire foundation team, including the young leaders and external consultants specializing in different forms of discrimination. The result was a 2.0 version of the trainings, far more specific, direct, and effective in combating prejudice. "It will no longer be possible for an employee to leave our training thinking they can discriminate against anyone for any reason," said Jennifer during the presentation of the new methodology. "And if someone still discriminates after the training, it will be a conscious choice, not ignorance," added Tyler. The new methodology was tested in the very retail chain that had caused the original problem. The results were remarkable. Within 6 months, there were no discrimination complaints, and overall customer satisfaction increased by 30%. "You turned our biggest crisis into an opportunity for improvement," said the chain's director in an evaluation meeting. "We learned that from Robert," replied Michael. "He always said problems are opportunities in disguise." In August 2025, the foundation held a special event to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Robert's first humiliation at the dealership. The event took place at the very location where it all began, now transformed into a museum and training center. Hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by Robert's work were present: former dealership employees, customers who had received dignified service, former students of the school, multipliers from the national network, and the young leaders representing the movement's future. 30 years ago, Michael said in his opening speech, a simple man was humiliated in this very place because of his clothes. Instead of responding with anger or revenge, he chose to respond with transformation. Today, millions of people around the world have better experiences because Robert decided no one else should endure the humiliation he suffered. But the most important thing isn't the numbers or statistics. It's the personal stories of restored dignity, renewed self-worth, and multiplied respect. During the event, several people shared their own stories of transformation. Brandon Williams, the former employee Michael had met at the supermarket, spoke about how he applied Robert's teachings in his hardware store. Dr. Sarah Johnson, now a leader in compassionate medical care, explained how she had transformed her clinic into a model of patient respect. Rachel Adams and other young leaders presented their projects to bring the methodology to new areas: schools, universities, government agencies, and even dating apps aiming to combat discrimination. Robert's legacy isn't just alive, Jennifer said in her presentation. It's evolving and adapting to the challenges of each new generation. But the most moving moment of the event came when Tyler announced a special surprise. We'd like to introduce the Foundation's newest project, the Robert Wilson University of Human Dignity. It will be a higher education institution dedicated exclusively to training professionals specialized in respectful human relations across different contexts: business, healthcare, education, government, and humanitarian work. The university will open in 2026, offering undergraduate and graduate programs that combine academic theory with intensive practice. And most importantly, it will be entirely tuition-free, funded by the profits from the dealerships and the Foundation's resources. The audience erupted in applause. The idea of a university entirely devoted to human dignity was the perfect culmination of Robert's legacy. Robert always dreamed of the day when respecting people would be a profession, Michael said emotionally. Now we'll train professionals specialized in just that. After the event, Michael, Jennifer, and Tyler met for the last time in the office where Robert used to work. "Do you think we've fulfilled our mission?" Jennifer asked. "I think we've surpassed even Robert's dreams," Tyler replied. "And the most beautiful part is that our mission has no end," Michael observed. "Each new generation will face new forms of prejudice and discrimination. There will always be work to do." "Which is exactly how Robert would have wanted it," Jennifer said. "He always said our greatest victory would be creating something that could survive and evolve without us." "And we did," Tyler confirmed. "The university, the Young Leaders Program, the network of multipliers. All of it will keep growing long after we're gone." Michael looked out the window at the dealership lot, where a few families were browsing the cars on display. A young salesperson was kindly assisting an elderly woman who was asking questions about a compact car. "You know what gives me the greatest satisfaction?" Michael said. "What?" Jennifer and Tyler asked. "Seeing respectful service become so natural that people don't even notice it's different. That salesperson is treating that woman with care because it's how he learned to work, not because someone told him to. It's proof we've changed the culture," Jennifer agreed. "And that our work has become invisible," Tyler added, which was exactly the goal. That evening, the three dined together at Mr. Yamamoto's restaurant, where, at 85 years old, he still personally served his most special guests. "Mr. Yamamoto," Michael said, "do you remember the advice you gave Robert over 20 years ago?" "What advice?" that the best revenge is quiet success. Showing through. Actions, not words. Mr. Yamamoto smiled. I remember, and you followed it to the letter. You turned humiliation into a force for global change. Would Robert be proud? Robert is proud. Wherever he is, he's seeing the seed he planted grow into a forest. By the end of 2025, Michael made the decision he'd been putting off for years. At 71, he announced his retirement as the foundation's president. Jennifer and Tyler also decided to step back, transitioning into advisory roles. The new leadership was entrusted to Rachel Adams and 2 other young leaders, all under 35, all deeply committed to Robert's values. You're taking on an enormous responsibility, Michael said at the transition ceremony, but also a unique opportunity to take our work to levels we haven't even imagined. We understand the responsibility, Rachel replied, and we promise to honor Robert's legacy by always keeping human dignity at the forefront and evolving our methods as the world changes, added one of the other new directors. Perfect, Jennifer said. That's exactly what Robert would expect from you. In August 2026, the Robert Wilson University of Human Dignity opened its doors to its first class of students. There were 200 young people from all over the country, selected not just for academic merit, but primarily for demonstrating a genuine commitment to respect and social justice. The curriculum was revolutionary. It combined psychology, sociology, business administration, human rights, communication, and even the arts, all focused on building more dignified human relationships. Welcome to the world's first university, entirely dedicated to human dignity, Rachel said during the inaugural lecture. You are pioneers in a new profession. Over the next 4 years, you'll learn not just service techniques, but most importantly, how to see every person as a unique and valuable human being. And when you graduate, you won't leave here as mere salespeople or service workers. You'll be specialists in human dignity. The university quickly gained national and international recognition. Companies began specifically seeking professionals trained at the institution. Humanitarian organizations requested specialized consultants. Governments asked for help in humanizing public services. In 2027, 2 years after his retirement, Michael received an honor that moved him deeply. The Tampa City Council unanimously approved the creation of the Robert Wilson Merit Award, designed to recognize individuals who excelled in promoting human dignity. Michael was the first honoree, followed by Jennifer and Tyler. This honor represents not just our individual work, Michael said at the ceremony, but that of thousands of people who embraced Robert's vision of a world where everyone is treated with respect. Robert started alone, humiliated in a store. Today, his philosophy is taught at a university, applied in thousands of businesses, and practiced by professionals worldwide. This proves that one determined person can truly change the world, one respectful interaction at a time. In December 2027, on the 32nd anniversary of Robert's humiliation, an event perfectly symbolized his legacy. An 8-year-old child, the grandchild of a customer who had been well served at one of the train dealerships, wrote a school essay on how to treat people right. The teacher was so impressed by the maturity of the essay that she sent it to the foundation. My name is Emily, and I want to talk about treating people right. My grandma always teaches me that it doesn't matter if someone is rich or poor, pretty or plain, young or old. Everyone deserves to be treated well. She learned this at a car dealership where a very kind man taught everyone to be polite. I think if everyone were as polite as my grandma teaches, the world would be happier. At my school, I treat everyone well. It doesn't matter if a boy has new or old clothes, or if a girl is smart or struggles. My mum says this is because my grandma taught me right, and my grandma learned it from the man at the car dealership. So that means one good person can teach another to be good, and that person teaches another, and it keeps going. I'll teach my kids too when I grow up. The end. Just look, Rachel said when she read the essay at a foundation meeting. An 8-year-old child perfectly understood the concept of multiplying respect. And she's determined to keep the chain going, observed one of the directors. Robert planted a seed that grew into a tree, and now that tree is producing new seeds, said another. And those seeds will grow and produce even more seeds endlessly, Rachel finished. In 2028, at 74 years old, Michael decided to write a book telling the full story of Robert and the transformation he had witnessed. The book, From Contempt to Dignity: How a Humiliated Man Transformed the World, became a national bestseller and was translated into more than 20 languages. "Uru, why did you decide to write the book now?" asked a journalist during the launch. "Because I want future generations to understand that social transformation is possible, that an ordinary person facing an unjust situation can choose between perpetuating the injustice or turning it into a force for change." And what's the main lesson from Robert's story? That the best way to fight evil is to multiply good. That responding to hate with love, to disrespect with dignity, to humiliation with transformation, always yields more lasting results than repaying evil with evil. Do you think Robert ever imagined his story would have this kind of impact? Never. Robert just wanted to ensure no one else would endure the humiliation he went through. He never imagined it would grow this much. And does that make the story even more inspiring? Much more, because it proves that anyone facing any injustice can plant seeds of change. You don't need to be a hero or have special resources. You just need to choose to respond constructively. In 2029, Robert Wilson University of Human Dignity graduated its first class of specialists in human dignity. The 200 graduates were sought after by companies, NGOs, and public agencies across the country. Many started their own specialized consulting firms. Others became professors at traditional universities, bringing the methodology to business, psychology, and social work programs. "You are the first professionals in the world with a specific degree in human dignity," said Rachel at the graduation. "This is both a responsibility and a privilege. For 4 years you've learned that respecting people isn't just kindness or politeness. It's a professional skill that can be developed, refined, and taught. Now you'll go out and transform organizations, communities, and lives. Always remember, every person you teach to treat others with dignity will become a multiplier of respect." And so, Robert's legacy will keep growing through you, through your students, and through their students, endlessly. The graduation ceremony was live-streamed and watched by over 100,000 people worldwide. Among the viewers was Emily, now 12, who watched with her grandmother. "Grandma, I want to study at that university when I grow up," said Emily. "Why?" "Sweetheart, because I want to learn exactly how to teach people to be good to one another." "And do you think you need a university for that?" "Not really. You've already taught me the most important part. But if I study there, I'll be able to teach many people at once." "Like Mr. Wilson did?" "Yes. He taught a few people. Those people taught others. And now there's a whole university teaching everyone." "And you want to be part of that chain?" "I do, and I want to teach my children too." Her grandmother smiled, remembering the first time she'd been treated well at a dealership trained by Robert. "I'm sure you'll do it, sweetheart. And Mr. Wilson, wherever he is, will be very proud." In 2030, exactly 35 years after that initial humiliation, Tampa officially became the world's first City of Human Dignity. The certification was created by an international organization that evaluated levels of respect and inclusion in different locations. Tampa earned it by fostering a culture where discrimination in public and private service was extremely rare, where people of all socioeconomic backgrounds were treated with equal dignity, and where children grew up learning respect as a fundamental value. "This certification means far more than just recognition for our city," said the mayor at the ceremony. "It stands as proof that an entire society can be transformed based on the vision of one person who refused to accept injustice." Robert Wilson started with a car dealership. His disciples expanded it across an entire region, and now we have a whole city that serves as a global model for how people should treat one another. This proves that utopias can become reality when there's political will, social engagement, and the right methodology. During the ceremony, a monument to Robert was unveiled in the city's central square. The statue depicted him not as a hero, but as an ordinary man, wearing the same simple clothes he had on when he was humiliated. At the base of the statue, a plaque bore his most famous words. "Every person spared from humiliation justifies all our efforts." And below it, a quote from Michael. "Robert taught us that the greatest revenge against humiliation is to multiply dignity." In 2031, at the age of 78, Michael received a special visit at his home. It was Emily, now 15, accompanied by her grandmother. "Mr. Michael, I came here to thank you and ask for something," the young girl said. "Go ahead, Emily. I want to thank you because you and your friends created a world where I've never been discriminated against for anything. I grew up believing that being respected is normal. And what is your request?" "I want to intern at the foundation while I finish high school. And afterward, I want to study at Robert Wilson University." "Why?" "Because I want to continue the work you started. I want to make sure my children and grandchildren also grow up in a world where everyone is treated with dignity." "Emily, do you understand this is a lifelong mission? That it will never truly be finished?" "I do, and that's exactly why I want to be part of it. My grandma always says the best things in life are those we do for others. And you're willing to dedicate your life to teaching respect?" "I am, and you know why? Because I've seen the difference it makes. My grandma told me stories about how people were treated before your work, and I see how they're treated now. The difference is incredible." Michael was moved by the young girl's determination. "Emily, you have the internship, and I'm sure you'll be accepted into the university." "Thank you, Mr. Michael. I promise to honor Mr. Robert's legacy." "You already are, Emily, just by wanting to keep this chain of respect going." As Emily and her grandmother left, Michael reflected on their conversation. A 15-year-old girl was choosing to dedicate her life to human dignity, not because she had suffered discrimination, but because she grew up believing respect was normal and wanted to ensure it stayed that way. Robert had truly transformed the world. He had raised generations of people who saw human dignity not as a utopian ideal, but as a basic standard of life. In December 2031, Michael, Jennifer, and Tyler gathered for the last time in Robert's office for a final reflection. "Do you remember how scared you were when Robert died?" Jennifer asked. "Of course. We thought we couldn't continue the work without him," Tyler replied. "And now I see he prepared us perfectly," Michael said. "Not just to continue, but to expand far beyond what he imagined. And we've raised a new generation ready to take it even further," Tyler added. "Do you think Robert would approve of everything we've done?" Jennifer asked. "I'm certain of it," Michael answered without hesitation, "especially because we kept the focus on human dignity, not growth for growth's sake. And because every expansion was based on the real need to fight discrimination," Tyler noted. "But what would make him proudest is knowing that we're no longer needed," Jennifer said. "The work now has a life of its own." "Exactly. Young people like Emily are choosing this mission not because they've suffered humiliation, but because they grew up believing dignity is a basic right for everyone. That means we've truly changed the culture," concluded Tyler. "We've changed the world," corrected Michael. "One person at a time, one interaction at a time, one generation at a time." That evening, the three shared one last dinner together at Mr. Yamamoto's restaurant, which had closed its doors that year when he was 92, but he insisted on personally preparing a farewell meal for his old friends. "Mr. Yamamoto, thank you for all these years of friendship and guidance," said Michael. "I'm the one who's grateful to have witnessed one of the most beautiful stories I've ever seen," replied the Japanese man. "What story?" "The story of how three people chose to honor a friend's memory by making the world a better place. We just followed the example Robert gave us." "You didn't just follow it, you surpassed it. Robert planted a seed, you nurtured it, until it became a forest, and now others will nurture new forests," said Jennifer. "That's how life works," Mr. Yamamoto mused. "Each generation plants trees for the next. You planted the most beautiful one of all, human dignity." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this incredible tale of transformation and resilience. Where are you watching from? Do you know someone who, like Robert, turned a painful experience into a force for positive change? And what did you think of Michael's evolution from someone who discriminated to a multiplier of respect? We'd love to read your heartfelt thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us on this moving journey. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other inspiring stories that could change how you see the world.